everybody. Welcome to the 4th annual RevTech Summit. My name is Billy Bateman. I am one of the founders of Signals and happy to welcome you all in today. We've got a great summit planned for you. We have over 30 speakers. We've got over 2,500 attendees from companies big and small all over the world, all the way from brand new startups to the Fortune 500. We're really excited to have you guys as part of this, so let's get into it. Okay, so some of the speakers that we've got lined up for you, we're going to go through them, but here are some of the companies they represent. So we've got Zoom Info, Refine Labs, Owler, Revenue.io, Domo, 6 Sense, Go-to-Market Partners, Mediafly, Terminus, Vose, Sendoso, Intelligence Bank, just to name a few. Really excited. We've got a mix of technology companies, of practitioners, and also of agencies that are working with a lot of different companies. So they're able to share the perspective from working with a lot of different problems and ways to attack things. Okay, so let's go into how this is going to work today first. So we've got our live session, which are going to be running. If you're watching on LinkedIn right now, these will just run continuous on LinkedIn throughout the day. Also on Revenue Summit or RevTechSummit.com. This will be going all day on the live feed, and then on YouTube as well. You can watch these. So you can watch all of these in order. These are live. Feel free to engage. Try to chat in if they're going to take questions. Some of the speakers are going to take questions. Some just have a presentation in a tight window. They're not going to be able to take questions in real time. So you've got these, and then we're also going to have some recorded sessions. So after me, you're going to hear from Henry Shuk and Dave Elkington for our keynote. Awesome conversation they're going to have around RevTech trends, challenges, and how you can overcome those challenges. Then we've got Sangram from Go-to-Market Partners, Megan Brown, the CEO of Refine Labs, Lindsay Tishgart from Mediafly, and Brandy Sanders, the CMO at Revenue.io. And then last but certainly not least, Mark Mon from Domo. Okay, then on the pre-recorded side of things at 10 a.m. Pacific, these are going to be available at RevTechSummit.com. And so we've got Kyle Coleman, Latney Conant, Heidi Barnett, Tim Harsh from Owler, Ryan Westwood from Fullcast, and then we've got a panel with Jared Robin, Molly, Lisa, and Adam J. About fractionals, how to use them, what you should be looking for. Going to be very interesting to watch. Then at 11 a.m. Pacific, we've got William Tyree and myself sat down. We had a great conversation around the future of SDRs for B2B marketing and SaaS. If you're using SDRs, I think you should definitely pay attention. He's got some interesting insights on what the future of the SDR role is. And then we've got Andre Yee, Whitney Mitchell, Amelia, and Dan Caffey from Vose. And then at 12 p.m. Pacific time, we've got Anne and Gina from Terminus, Katie from Sendoso, Jake, Steve, and McKay have a great conversation around how marketing and sales can work together. Deanne from Red Monkey, and then Jen from Go Nibbly. Okay, so those are the speakers for today. Really excited for all the sessions. Take some time. If you can't watch them all today, we know everyone's still got a job to do. Come back. They're going to be available on demand. You can come watch them at RevTechSummit.com, and you'll have full access to those for the next 30 days. They'll be there. So before we move on to getting into the speakers, a few more things to cover. So one would be our award winners. We had over 60 nominees and over 3,500 people vote. It was the most votes we've ever gotten for any of our summits. We're really excited. These were nominated by the community and voted on by your peers. So we'll get into recognizing first all of our nominees. Congratulations for being nominated. Really, really great turnout and a really strong list of nominees this time. Okay, so we're going to recognize the top 4 in each of our categories. So we'll start here with our RevTech practitioners. And our top 4 vote getters were Tom from SalesLoft, Katie from Sendoso, Amelia from the Revenue Table, and Ashley from Apollo. For RevTech strategist, we've got Jason from RevGenius, Janice from Scale Your Sales, Alexis from Verbatim, and Chelsea from Tech Mode. Congratulations. And then for our RevTech thought leaders, we've got Antonio from DBI, Jared from RevGenius, Rosalind from the RevOps Collective, and Howard from Revenue.io. And then the last category is our RevTech architects, Francisco from Metadata, Julia from HSE, Alexine from WS, and Heidi from Girls Who Sell. Congratulations to y'all. Okay, before I hand it off to Henry, the last thing we're going to do is just introduce what's new with Signals. Our goal at Signals has always been to help our customers intelligently automate growing and closing sales pipeline. We've been helping our customers do that using AI for automated engagement, including our chatbot, email, real-time alerts, and account scoring for sales and marketing teams. Today, we're announcing 2 new products as part of our platform that will continue to help our customers achieve their revenue goals and consolidate their tech stacks for increased efficiency. So with that, our 2 new products are our intelligent forms and our conversational landing pages. With our intelligent forms, our chatbot has already been capturing leads and connecting our customers with their buyers, but we wanted to be able to offer our customers a more holistic solution to capture, prioritize, and connect with leads that match their ideal customer profile. In today's competitive landscape, it's never been more important to connect with your buyers as soon as possible. According to Google, 35 to 50% of B2B sales deals are won by the vendor that responds first. I mean, the Ricky Bobby rule, it's still in effect. If you're not first, you're last. And with Signals Intelligent Forms, you can do just that. So with these forms, we're able to qualify and enrich leads in real time, immediately engage with buyers via scheduling a meeting from a form or having a live chat from a form, and ultimately win more deals by responding first. Our goal is to set you up to be in that conversation before anyone else, once they've raised their hand and said, I want to talk with you. With our conversational landing pages, we're expanding on what our chatbot can do. And these really just provide a distraction-free way to engage your buyers in a few different situations. So our customers are already having success using these for in-person events and trade shows. We've got a QR code generator as part of this, very easy for your sales or marketing team to create a landing page right there, use at the booth. You're in control of it, whether that's just capturing info or scheduling meetings to follow up after the trade show. And then virtual event registration, ABM campaigns, and ultimately a distraction-free way to engage with your buyers. So very excited to bring both of these to our customer base. And to those of you that aren't Signals customers already, come check them out, see what we can do for you. We do have a special offer for anyone that's registered and attending the summit and schedules a demo today. We will include the intelligent forms for free for your first year. So you can schedule, there's a lot of places on the Summit website where you can schedule a demo through the chatbot, through the form, and we're happy to talk to you, show you what we can do to help you grow your sales pipeline and ultimately win more deals. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Henry Shuk and Dave Elkington. They're going to have a great conversation around trends in revenue technology. What are the challenges that we're facing right now? And then how do you use technology to overcome those for your go-to-market motion? Two of the really great thought leaders, and excited to see what they have. So with that, I'll hand it over to you, Dave.
Welcome, everybody. I am super excited to be having this conversation with Henry today. If you don't know Henry, and you're the one person who, there's one of you out there I know, let me do, Billy just gave some intro, but look, Henry has built and scaled one of the most, I would say, impactful and influential companies in the entire sales and marketing space. I think they've disrupted over and over what companies are doing. They're helping lead the industry on what we should be doing next. So I'm super honored, super grateful to have Henry on the call. He's the CEO and founder of Zoom. He's done it for I think it's almost 1,000 years. He's been running. It's like, he built it from scratch. They're at significant scale. They've got thousands and thousands of customers. And Henry will give us more insight into what's happening in the revenue technology stack, into what's happening in the industry, what's happening as it relates to the economy. And so I think this conversation is going to be super interesting. Henry, thank you for joining us. It's amazing. Like you're amazing to take the time with us.
Well, thank you, Dave, for that great intro. When we were, it's been 17 years, not 1,000, but 17 oftentimes feels like 1,000. It might as well be 1,000 in this space. Like you think about when we started ZoomInfo and you started inside sales, like it was 2007, and the world has changed so dramatically in those 17 years. And I'm really proud and honored to still be here and still running ZoomInfo and really still learning about how to innovate the next iteration of what go-to-market looks like for sales and marketing and RevOps and sales ops professionals. And so it's an exciting opportunity. There's so much happening. There's been not a single year of those 17 years that things didn't change dramatically. But I would say the pace of change today is much, much faster than it's ever been. And so, I'm drinking from a fire hose every day and trying to make sure that our very large R&D and product teams are focused on the right things and building the right things for the future.
And I mean, that's super exciting for this conversation, because as you just kind of alluded, things are changing at an accelerated rate. And as a result, if I'm a sales or marketing leader or a RevOps leader, or anybody who's kind of in this go-to-market stack, if you will, like it's super hard, because like today's reality is different than a year or 2 years. I mean, it's completely different from pre-COVID versus now. So I think there's going to be a lot of super interesting insights that I think you'll be able to share, because you do have a unique perspective. And look, just again, for everyone to understand, Henry is one of the preeminent CEOs in this industry, and it is unusual to have this much time with someone who knows so much about this space. So, dude, let's get in. So, my first question that I want to dig into with you, and I want you to just wander, like just go wherever, like wherever you that kind of catches your interest. But the first one is kind of this macro environment we're in. And so for some people who may not know what I mean by that, over the last 24 months, the economy has really changed, and we went from a place where companies were just trying to grow at all costs. Like, so basically cost was irrelevant. It was all about growth. And in the last 18 months, the whole universe changed. And so from saying grow at all costs, now it's profitability, efficiency, productivity, and growth is now second to that. And as a result, we've seen thousands of layoffs over the last 12, 18 months, like hundreds of thousands, just a crazy amount. And we're still seeing it this year. So look, first, just from the broad picture, give me your take on what's going on in this macro environment, in what's happening in the big picture.
Yeah, let me start like small and then see if I can zoom out on it. So 2021 into 2022, nobody was really focused on, particularly in software, we're really focused on unit economics or profitability. The number one question I would get asked by my investors and public company investors was, can you take down your margin and your profitability and grow faster? That's all anybody wanted to talk to me about. So I was like constantly making excuses for running a profitable business. And in our customer base, our customers were flush with dollars. And I'll give two examples in our customer base, but they're repeated over and over and over and over again. We have a customer. We had a customer. We still have a customer. We're much smaller, but they had $1 million of ARR. They raised $50+ million at a $300 million valuation.
Wow.
So 300x multiple on revenue. And they were spending $150,000 a year with us. 15% of revenue on ZoomInfo is just like, listen, I want it. So if you want to
I'll take it all day long.
I'll take it. But it doesn't make sense. And when valuations came down to earth and investors said, listen, it's not about growth at all costs, but if I'm going to get a $300 million valuation out of this $1 million ARR business, it actually has to look more like a $50 million business with 20% margins. And right now you're a $1 million business that's burning, I don't know, $10 million a year. And so it's a major paradigm shift in the way that you run your business. And so that's one. And for me, that's $100,000 a year customer, $150,000 a year customer that is obviously going to go, downsell in a pretty meaningful way, probably to where it should be, like a $15,000, $10,000 a year customer. So that's one example. Another example, if I go to a more scaled company, we have a customer, $75 million of revenue, raised $500 million at a multi-billion-dollar valuation, had 50 sales reps. Over the next 2 years was doubling the size of the sales team. And so bought a 2-year contract with ZoomInfo, went from 50 and bought ahead, right? 150 sales reps. We're going to grow into it. And then they turned the corner on 2022. And the investors showed up and they go, listen, you're a $75 million business. You're growing 50% a year and you're burning $50 million a year to do that. And we're never going to make our money back if that's the kind of business you're running. So we don't want you to grow 50% a year anymore. We want you to grow 10. And we want you to do it with 30% margins. So you're burning $50 million. We actually want you to be making closer to $20 million. And so wipe out the $50 million to spend, add another 20 to it. So figure out how to cut $70 million of cost.
$70 million swing. Yeah.
$70 million.
That's crazy.
And it's crazy. And by the way, we want you to do it in a quarter. And so these guys they're letting go of their sales teams. They're cutting costs anywhere they can. Sales cycles are elongating, like the big tech vendors, CRM, they're stuck in there. They're probably dealing with some downsell in these types of accounts, but they're incredibly sticky. And then everybody around the periphery is paying a pretty big price for the decisions that were made to support a zero interest rate environment to the decisions that are being made in a completely different environment. And so, that is the macro headwind. Now, when that happened, it didn't just limit itself to startups and scale-ups and companies that have received a lot of funding, but the enterprises were doing the same thing, because you saw Meta and Microsoft and Salesforce, everybody did cuts because during COVID, they stacked up their teams, and then they realized outside of COVID that it wasn't going to run that way anymore. When there weren't trillions of dollars being flooded in the economy, you had to run your business a little bit differently. So then in the enterprise, you also felt this pressure. So you weren't immune really anywhere in your businesses. And we weren't immune in our business either. And so over 23, the business decelerated mainly because our customers weren't getting rid of ZoomInfo, but they were downselling to a place that made more sense. And so gross churn stayed relatively the same, but our net dollar retention was what was impacted the most because people would cut seats, but they'd remain customers of ZoomInfo.
So let's unpack. I mean, what you just shared is it's 24 months of just blood and guts of what's happened. Honestly, it's been super brutal for everybody. So if I'm a marketer or I'm a seller in this market right now, my life just got super, super hard because when interest rates were zero, meaning money was free, people were investing in these companies, whether they're tech startups to manufacturing to healthcare, there was just money everywhere. So people were spending like crazy. So the sellers, if you're a seller listening to this right now, you just came off of maybe the easiest selling environment you will ever have in your entire life. Now, what just happened, and Henry, dude, thank you. It's so on point with the interest rates going from 0 to 7% in the space of 24 months or whatever that was. It just became super difficult. Not only did it become difficult to sell, it became impossible just to keep your customers.
And Dave, let me make just a fine point on this because sometimes you hear this zero interest rate stuff and it's finance and your brain just turns off. But when you just think about dollars going into companies, right? I'm an investor, and I can go put $50 million into the stock market, into a bunch of software equities, or I could take that $50 million and put it in the bank, and I get guaranteed a 5% return on that money.
Yes.
And I'm not guaranteed a 5% return in any sort of public equity. I'm taking a different type of bet. And as an investor, I'm getting money from pension funds and, state governments and all of these different things to invest those dollars. Well, those guys are thinking the same thing. Maybe I'm not going to allocate as much to public equities or private equities as I did before because I have a guaranteed 5% return over here. And so everything kind of clamped down all over the place. And so, the waterfall of changing from a zero interest rate environment to where we are today, and that's kind of how it feels like, hey, why would I invest in a public equity when I know I can get 5% over here guaranteed? And why would I put my money into public equities, hedge funds, long onlys, or private equity firms when I know I can just put my money over here and get 5% interest?
And what that means is no one is buying anything anymore because there really is no money. And so, okay, so that's this Uber framework of what like we're dealing with in the current environment. And I don't know if anyone's kind of spelled it out to marketing and sales leaders like I think you just did. It's brutally difficult. So like getting a new customer is harder than ever. Keeping your customer is harder than ever. And keeping your customer even in the range of what they were spending with you is crazy difficult. So with that framework, with that depressing overview, but it's reality. What are some of the things that you're seeing companies do? What are you guys doing? Because you guys just came off like an amazing quarter. Like you just came off, and you guys just reported your Q4 results. Yep, and it was fantastic. The market loved it. They rewarded it. So again, I want to really talk to sales and marketing leaders who are sitting here listening to this thing. What are some of the things that are working for your sales organization and for your marketing organization?
Yeah, so I'll say this number one. It is the most difficult software selling environment I think in the history of software selling. Like 2000, I was in high school, so I didn't really know like what that was like. But I'm fairly certain that for most of our careers, the last year and then probably this year too are going to be the hardest software selling environments that we've operated in. Now, that's really tough because as a seller, you're thinking about and as a marketer, you're thinking about 2021, and it doesn't feel like that far away. And your job was just a lot easier. Like you sold more, you made more money. It was probably, it was definitely easier to sell. There was less scrutiny, shorter deal cycles. And so I just think as a profession, we just have to come to grips with that. It's just harder. Like my job is meaningfully harder today than it was before. I was making like more like different decisions that were about growth. Now I'm scrutinizing every investment decision. I'm trying to find places where we're wasting dollars. Like that's happening everywhere. And on my board, I have 3 private equity folks on my board, and they're telling me like there's not a single company in our portfolio that we're not coming in and saying like, hey, you better cut spending across all of your vendors. And that's interesting because what we actually see is from a new business perspective, we've stayed relatively like strong from a new business perspective. So getting the next logo has been meaningfully easier than managing through contraction and downsell in the customer base. I think that has to do with 2 big things. One, our customers overbought, and I think everybody's customers kind of overbought. And so you're dealing with like the shrinking, coming back to reality there. And then, on top of that, when you go to a marketer or a salesperson and you say, or a sales leader, and you say, hey, I need you to cut your spend, they're going to their existing vendors to do that. And then a new vendor still has the opportunity to show up and say like, you want to drive efficiency, you want to drive growth in your business, I can help.
That's interesting.
Versus I've got this vendor who's doing work for me, but it's not driving as much efficiency or effectiveness as I need. And so I'm gonna clamp down on everything in my customer base.
That's super interesting. Let me just, because you just said something that's a little provocative, and I want to challenge you, but I think you're right. But I'm going to challenge you anyway.
Yeah.
So historically, it's always better to save your current customer. It's always more cost effective to keep your current customer than it is to get a new one. And what you're telling me is it's actually not necessarily the case, because customers are always looking for like the next way to win. And it sounds like buyers are giving up on that just a little bit.
Yeah, so I will tell you two things. One, it is still like far more efficient to keep a customer than it is to get a new customer.
Okay, all right.
But that efficiency, like the gap is shrinking. Still like there's a meaningful gap, but the gap is shrinking.
Okay.
And then what I would tell you is that to the point that we just made around like it's a tough software selling environment, probably the most tough software selling environment you've ever sold in. What percentage of reps do you think are showing up every day, like spelling out the ROI story of the software and solutions that they're selling their customers and giving their buyers a roadmap to how to talk about the value that they're generating, the ROI that they're delivering, how it's impacting their teams? They don't know how to do that because they just haven't had to do that for the last 5 years. They've been able to show up with kind of a thin layer of value to point to. And things were so good that the customers were renewing at with a very different level of scrutiny than they are today. And that's what you heard every software company say in the middle of 2022 and the back half of 2022 is, scrutiny, sales cycles elongated, scrutiny.
Yeah.
What does that really mean? It means like all of a sudden buyers are asking harder questions of their vendors and partners, and they're demanding that you show up with an ROI story, ideally mapped to like a number from a revenue perspective, from a cost reduction perspective. Certainly there was a lot of talk about consolidation early on when the cycle turned, because people believed that you'd see companies consolidating to save on costs. And so that scrutiny, I think, has met sellers flat-footed. And marketers are like also scrambling, like, how do I give collateral to my team so they can talk about ROI and you're going to show up to a CFO's desk, most likely, with your solution. And maybe that CFO wasn't involved at all before. The thing got signed in the business unit. And guess what the CFO is going to ask you? Tell me the ROI. Tell me the metrics you used. What deals did you help me sell? What efficiencies did you drive? And I want hard numbers. And we just were not in a place where we were sophisticated enough to do that. Maybe the very best of us were, but when you show up to a renewal conversation, you don't have that. It's a very difficult conversation to have.
So you suggested, you saw this in software, but I sit on a board on a healthcare company. I sit on the board of a university, a public university. It's across the board. Like cost savings and cost cutting and return on investment is universally the new requirement. So again, if you're a marketer and a seller or a leader listening right now, your number one takeaway from Henry's presentation is everything you do should be pitching either revenue generation or cost savings, like hands down. Like if you hear nothing else, do that. Just do that. 100%. So that's amazing. What are some of the other techniques and tricks that have helped you? Again, you just came off an amazing year, an amazing quarter, and a lot of other companies did not. So, whatever you're willing to share, some of these might be secrets, but what are you willing to share?
I'll tell you the other thing that we at least like, that one of the shifts that we had to make. And our business, like probably, many businesses, you can think it's like a barbell. On one side, I have enterprise. Enterprise grows. It grows, it's sticky, there's lots of white space. And then on the other side, I have our SMB customers. Our SMB customers, like every SMB customer base, churns at a higher rate. You sell them, it's 3 seats, you sell them the 3 seats. There's not a lot of growth to go find. It's not like you're going to go find 500 more seats at IBM. That's not going to happen in your SMB segment, and they go out of business faster. They pivot to different models. And so for us to be successful and drive a high net retention rate, we have to offset what happens in SMB with a strong enterprise customer base that's growing and mature and sticky. And so we spent a lot of time focused on making sure that we had a lot of product market fit, not just in our SMB clients, but also up in our enterprise business. That's continued to grow and been a success story for us at ZoomInfo. And then as we think about the SMB, what we think a lot about is, one of the great things about ZoomInfo is that it allows SMB companies to compete in a way that they otherwise wouldn't be able to. If every company had to compete on Google Ads, then the biggest companies would always win. And one of the beauties of ZoomInfo is I can be an IT service provider in Boise, Idaho, and compete with the biggest players all around the world because I have direct access with ZoomInfo to key decision makers all across the country. And I hear this over and over and over again from our SMB customers. But the trick is, how do I get every customer to experience in the SMB to experience that same level of upside and opportunity and success? And how do I do that in a way where in a scaled, systematic way, where the cost of service doesn't get out of whack,
prohibitive.
And so you're investing in systems. We're investing in systems that drive that. You're investing in really great knowledge centers and universities. Onboarding experiences are tremendously important. Every SaaS business out there can just look at a customer who had a great onboarding experience and a customer who had not a great onboarding experience. And all of that ties back to your retention rates. And so we're spending a lot of time on onboarding, on systems that drive usage. I know, Dave, we're going to talk about AI. But one of
that's where I was going.
AI is actually simplifying the user experience. And so today with ZoomInfo, if you want to figure something out with ZoomInfo, like you want to know which companies are most likely to buy your products and services, you're on like 7 different screens that you're trying to like triangulate and remember. And then you're kind of manually thinking through, okay, I saw this company was spiking on intent, and this company visited my website, and this is one of my good companies, and it's in the US and in my territory. And that takes a lot of load, and an SMB customer, actually any customer, is going to really struggle to do that. There are 2 in my mind, and there are more, but in my mind, the most crystallized opportunities with generative AI, particularly for software companies, is one on triangulating data points. How do I take multiple data points and triangulate them to understand something? And then 2 on summarizing, large blocks of free form or unstructured text or structured text. How do you summarize that? And so on the first one, instead of you having to go like 7 different places and pull the information out of ZoomInfo, with generative AI, we're able to do that for you. First of all, we know who your company is because the summarization strength, we can just go to your website, read all your case studies, read all your press releases, read all about your company. Now we know who you are, and we can take everything we learned and just apply it to ZoomInfo. And so now we can go and say, these are the companies you should be reaching out to. These are the reasons why. These are the people you should be reaching out to in a prioritized ranked order, which, by the way, for decades, people have been saying that they can do, or we're trying to actually deliver. But without
it's never worked. It has never worked, dude.
Never worked.
No.
Never worked.
So let's talk. Okay, I got to unpack some of what you said because there was so many nuggets in here. So one thing, a second lesson is move up market. You will naturally, if you're selling right now or marketing and you're promoting your company, you will naturally have a more difficult time in selling and a more difficult time in retaining and expanding your customers if you're not moving up market. The other thing you said in here, and I love this, is your data. So look, Henry, you're the king of data, right? You've been doing data longer than everybody that I know. Like, and your data is arguably the best that I've ever seen. Like, it's really, really good. Now, if you are selling, you could have the best AI in the world, but if your data is wrong, if you don't know who your ICP is, And how many times have people said, oh, well, my CRM data is a mess. Well, okay, guess what? Then if your CRM data is a mess, your AI is going to be off on one side or off on the other side. So you could have an amazing selling process and selling to the wrong people, or you could have the right people and then selling the exact wrong process. And so tell me a little bit more about like the intent data or the signal data that should be feeding AI. Because look, in no uncertain terms, if we're trying to drive efficiency for our customers and they're being forced to do it by their investors, by their board members, by their executive team, and I think AI is the answer to that. You got to get that AI right. And what's behind it all is this data, right? So what's the right data? What data do you like? I know that's a ton. I just threw it at you.
So let's start with just like foundational data. So I've been going around for almost 2 decades telling everybody who would listen, the data in your CRM is terrible and it's causing all sorts of issues for you downstream. Your territories are mapped poorly. Your sales reps are pissed off. They're wasting time with the wrong companies in the wrong areas. There's subsidiary and hierarchy issues. It's just a mess. And that message, while I find it to be incredibly compelling, and we've built a $1 billion+ business on that messaging, if you put me in front of a CRO with that message or a CEO with that message, it was just noise. It's like, what do I care about the quality of data in my CRM system? I don't care. And so
it's a RevOps problem, right? Like, what do I care? It's beneath me.
Not a thing for me. Now,
totally.
One of the things with generative AI that I've been really, happy with is that all of a sudden it's an everybody problem. And why? Go to the C-suite in any meaningful company in the United States and ask them, maybe in the world, and ask them, what are the key initiatives you're working on? And I guarantee you, the CEO is going to say,
across the board,
generative AI, generative AI. I went to a dinner. JP Morgan did a dinner with Jamie Dimon, who's the CEO of JP Morgan. And he started talking about generative AI. And he's like, this is a priority across JP Morgan. Generative AI is really important. And then he's like, and we're looking to use it for, and every major company is doing the same thing. Support, go to market. And when he said go to market, he said outreach to our customers, figuring out who the best customers to reach out to. This is the CEO of the largest bank. I think one of the largest banks, or the largest
in
bank
the world. Yeah,
in the world. And
definitely in the U.S. Definitely in the U.S.
Definitely in the U.S. And when he says generative AI, the first 2 things he says are support and outreach to customers. And so that is happening everywhere. Now, what happens when the CEO believes that? He goes and takes it to the CRO and he goes, where's my generative AI projects inside of go-to-market? And then CRO goes, hey, RevOps and everybody else, let's run a generative AI project. And where do you go for that data? You go to your CRM, you pull this data out and you go, tell me who the best customers are. Tell me the people I should be reaching out to at those customers. And it's going to do a terrible job of that. Because it's bad. It's not
that's
ever met in 17 years has told me the data in my CRM is great. Like that's never happened.
I'm yet to hear that. No, I'm yet to hear that. And the problem is if your ICP, so it's your ideal customer profile. I assume most people know that, but if your ideal customer profile, if you think it's this, generative AI and AI in general is able to go into your CRM and extract and say, it's a lookalike algorithm. Here's who your customers are. So, and these are the ones who buy lots from you. They expand, they're renewing. Therefore, sell to more companies like this. The problem is if your data is wrong, what if your employee count's incorrect in your CRM? What if you have duplicates that mean something different? Then you're selling to the wrong people.
Yep, it'll tell
it's across the board. It's all over the place.
Hey, I'm looking for companies that have over 1,000 employees in healthcare, and it goes and grabs, Ford. That's a bad
problem.
Thing. All that is
kind of a problem.
Field. And think about like how you let data get in your CRM. There's almost no limiter on it. Sales rep can put it in, marketing can go buy a list, marketing can go to a conference. It's just a mess. And so we cannot rely on that data first and foremost to drive the AI efficiencies that we're looking for. And it is infrastructural. The data that you use to go to market is infrastructure. That is infrastructure. It's how all of us in go to market should be thinking about data on our customers and prospects, is that it is infrastructure for everything else we do, forecasting, territory planning, and when we finally get to a generative AI. But that is an infrastructural element of the work that we do, the same way that cloud is infrastructure for our systems, the same way that ERP and CRM is infrastructure for our customer data. This is infrastructure for how we go to market. And until we really like click on that,
fix that,
the output's really great.
So I want to understand two things. How is it that you guys are helping companies? And it's not that, you guys are the only people who can help solve this, but you're definitely one of them. Like, let's be honest, like you've done this. And the second thing is, I want to know a little bit about your Copilot product, because I want to understand a little bit more about, again, it's not that, you're pitching us, but I want you to explain different ways people are beginning to use both AI and generative AI to solve some of these kind of problems. So first, how is it that Zoom helps you? By the way, I'm going to use this again. If you haven't heard, if you haven't used this, I'm going to steal this from you, except that now it's public, so everyone's going to know it was your idea anyway. But it is infrastructure. Data is your company's infrastructure, and if that's wrong, you're building on a bad foundation. So I am going to use your analogy.
You also mentioned
unabashedly.
You can steal it. I think I stole it from somebody. You mentioned signals too, like intent data, signals that tell you. I think about data, particularly go-to-market data, in two ways. There's foundational data, right? Company information, contact information. And there's a lot in there, right? Like company information includes industry, size, location, SIC code, NAICS code, description of the company, hierarchy. Are they a subsidiary of someone? Are they a parent of somebody? Technology stack data. So that's all, like, you can think of it as generally not static, but not changing every minute of every day. And then above that contact data, right? What is my title? What is my phone number? What's my mobile, my email address? How do you connect with me? Where do I sit in an organization? And then I think about above that, signal data. And signal data is data that tells you how to prioritize all of the companies and all of the contacts that are in your ICP. You craft your ICP with that foundational data, you prioritize it with signal data. There's all sorts of stuff that tells you only 5% of companies are in market for a product or service at a given time, or maybe it's a little bit more than that, but very limited amount of companies are in market right now for your products and services. And you want to make sure that if they are, you're in front of them. And there are all sorts of digital signal that can tell you when a company is in market for your products and services. The most commonly accepted definition of intent data is data that tells you what a company is researching in the public web. And so is a company researching I don't know, log security or network security or cloud security, or are they researching HVAC maintenance in a way that is outside of the historical bounds that they usually research? So at ZoomInfo, obviously in any given week, we're going to research a set amount of like stuff about, Datadog or cloud security or whatever it is.
Right.
When you see the amount of research at ZoomInfo move 2 standard deviations above what the norm is, that is an interesting flag to move that company up the priority list to get in contact with. That's, one type of intent. Another type of intent is a company visits your website and doesn't fill out a form. Maybe they fill out a form. That's a really high level of intent, right? They came to your website, they read stuff, and then they labored through filling out a form to identify themselves to you. That's the highest level of intent. Whatever you're doing, stop everything, call that person.
Call them.
Call them right now. And so if you go to ZoomInfo, fill out a form on our website, we will call you back within 90 seconds. And there's all sorts of system and process we've built over the years to make sure that's the case. And we're processing thousands of those every day. So that's the number one type of intent. What if I just come to your website and I don't tell you who I am? By the way, this is 98% of your website traffic. is showing up and not identifying themselves. And most of us have no visibility into who those people were, why they were on our website, do they fit our ICP or not. And so we believe anonymous website identification is a super, and I know you guys do too at Get Signals, believe that to be an incredibly valuable piece of data to be able to say, okay, they didn't fill out a form, but they did visit the pricing page and they did look around here and there, and then run a motion behind that. Your champion, someone bought your product somewhere else. Guess what? People don't stay at companies forever. They're going to leave that company. And when they leave, that's an incredible signal to call them at their new company and make sure you're top of mind for them. By the way, it's also a great signal and a threat in the existing, there's a threat and an opportunity. There's an opportunity.
That's right. Yep.
There's a threat in your existing account. So champion tracking. But champions don't have to move for there to be an opportunity. If I sell to the CIO and a new CIO comes in, or a new member of my buying committee comes in, those are all key moments for me to reach out. And on and on and on. They got funding. They opened a new location. They had a good quarter. They mentioned something in an earnings call. Their job description says that they're hiring 3 people to do something that your product addresses. They add a technology, remove a technology. We believe that all of these signals are the key to making sure you're in front of the right people at the right time. I said not a lot changed in the last 17 years, but one of the biggest things that changed is there is now this incredible amount of digital signal available that tells you a lot about what a company is doing and what they're thinking. And there's now technology not only to store it, but generative AI technology that can make sense of it for you.
Can interpret it
in a usable way.
So here, you've just said so much amazing stuff. So here's the problem. Again, buyers today versus 17 years ago are communicating almost overly verbosely, but it's digital, right? What they're not doing today is like raising their hand, getting the phone and saying, hey, I'd like some information on this. But they're on your website. They're looking at your pricing. They're looking at your competitors. Like there's all kinds of information. The problem is sellers and marketers aren't listening that way, or they are to one piece. So there's so much signal data out there. There's so much data that it becomes impossible for one seller or one marketer to be able to capture all of that across, a target list of 100 accounts or 1,000 accounts. It's impossible, right?
Yes.
So tell me,
segue to Copilot. It's a great segue to Copilot, because what we built ZoomInfo Copilot around is this problem. And it's self-serving in a lot of ways, because our biggest issue with customers is, intent, I didn't know you had that. Oh, websites, I didn't know you had that. Oh, champion tracking, I didn't know you had that. I didn't know you had my buyers. I didn't know you had all of this signal. And so what we've done with Copilot is we've transitioned what was for 17 years a pull model to a push model. We plug into your CRM, we plug into your website, we know who's visiting your website, we know what your website says, we know who you are, we know who you've won, we know who you've lost. We have AI models that go build out what your ideal customer profile looks like. We know who your target accounts are as a seller, and we know what the branch outside of those target accounts looks like. And so when you sit down every day, we're going to deliver you the prioritized list of accounts you should be engaging with, the reasons why, intent, website, champion move, funding, said something about a problem that you solved in an earnings call or a podcast or an interview or a press release or a job description. We've been accumulating all of these really interesting data pieces that we make available on our platform, but then you have to be like a super power user to pull the search together. And with by leveraging AI today, we can just push that to you in a really powerful way. And then we can tell you, by the way, here's the email message, which is the easiest part, but it's the whiz-bangiest part too. So here's the email that's been written for you. It's taken the context and the signal, and it's written you a really great email. Just hit you.
That's amazing. Okay. So, honestly, it feels like this kind of solution. What you described, anyone who's listening, if they're not falling all over themselves saying, oh my gosh, I need something like that, then maybe rethink your job. Like
Yeah,
rethink what you're
or
doing
I'm
right
going
now.
to have to fire all of my product managers and
Yeah,
rethink the way I
yeah.
think about the markets.
Okay, it's what
One of the
we'll have
two.
those two possibilities. We have those two possibilities. No, and again, the problem is there's so much communication happening that's digital. We just finished a study that shows depending on your industry, there are 18 to 50 different digital signals that your buyers or your prospects are actually communicating. And my guess is you're listening to maybe 2 or 3 at best if you're a seller or you're a marketer. So like this is the way to respond to this drive for efficiency, this drive of productivity. And so if you're not using some variation of this, I think you're going to find yourself outmoded. I think you're going to find yourself and again, is it your solution? Look, we know that works. Like we know it's a really great solution, but there's a lot out there, and depending on your size and scale, there's different levels of complexity, but you have to get engaged look, if you haven't done this, go through a demo. Again, I know this has not been choreographed, but go do a demo of Zoom Info's Copilot. Go see what it is.
To show it to you. Also, look, that whole thing might sound really intimidating. And so what I would tell you is if you want to just dip your toe in the water, then the way to think about this is around go-to-market plays. And we think about go-to-market plays. And so go to your best seller. They're doing some variation of this today. And just ask them, what are you tracking? If I go to my best sellers today, well, if I went to them 6 months ago, because I had to close a loophole. But if I went to them 6 months ago and I went, hey, what are you doing that is putting you in the lead? They will tell me, the top seller told me.
Oh yeah, they know.
Everybody else, and I go to our website's page that shows you all of the anonymous visitors that have come to Zoom Info, but they've identified them. And I just cross-reference to make sure they're not customers, and I put those in my name, and I start calling against them. Great. How do I take that and build an automated, industrialized play around that? If I go to the same guy, he told me I read job descriptions every day. I look for open job positions, and then I look for open job positions that say cold calling or new logo acquisition. And then I put those at the top of the list, and I start calling the VPs of sales at those companies. Great. Those are now industrialized inside of Copilot.
Yeah.
You don't have to be this super enterprising guy to be able to figure out those
techniques.
Tricks. Yeah, those techniques. And I think that is the power of what you can do when you couple digital signal with AI.
So look, that's if you're on a budget, you can't get your boss to give you any money. The trick here, like you just said, something's amazing, and I've done the same thing for years because your best sellers do some variation of this already. Everyone has. In fact, one I heard was they watch LinkedIn competitors, and anytime one of their ICP starts following a competitor, he calls them.
Yeah.
It's obvious, right? In hindsight, but his success rate is really high on that. Yep. So go interview your top 3 sellers and just ask them what their techniques are, and then institutionalize it. Make it into a system or a process that all of your sellers can do. Now, you should use it that's a band-aid.
By the way, Dave, what you just said, that is the future of go-to-market. That is what it is.
Yeah.
Look at what every one of your best sellers are doing. Industrialize that motion. Do it at scale. It runs.
Put it into systems, put it into processes, however you've got to do it with your budget today. That's if you're trying to get a nugget out of today, do that. All you have to interview them and then institutionalize it. That's it. Okay, so we only have a couple more minutes left. What's coming around the corner? You have insight into new technologies, into investments. You have insight into trends. Help us see where it's going to be in a year and in 5 years.
Here's a fun one.
Okay.
What do you think was the fastest growing title in the world last year, according to LinkedIn?
I am going to speculate, and I don't know, but don't make me look dumb if I'm wrong. It's either kind of head of RevOps or head of go to market.
Wow, good for you. It's head of RevOps. It's RevOps. We didn't choreograph that before.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, it's RevOps. The RevOps title is the fastest growing title in the world right now. And that's super interesting because what I see in my customer meetings today is when I have a meeting with the chief revenue officer, guess who he or she always brings to the call? There's always a RevOps
totally.
person who comes alongside. And what does that tell you? It tells you that data is becoming the most important part of how a company goes to market. Because what are the RevOps people doing? They're orchestrating data between your sales system, your marketing system, your third-party data, your ABM platform. They're bringing that data together. Ideally, they're centralizing it. They're pushing it back out in an orchestrated motion. Those folks are going to become more and more valuable and more important to how a modern company acquires new customers, grows their existing customers, runs efficiently. They are an unlock into the go-to-market of any company. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I believe today, or maybe the second biggest thing. The first thing, which is enabled by that RevOps profession, is I really do believe that corralling digital signal, your own first-party digital signal, with available third-party digital signal to prioritize and orchestrate your next best motion out to a prospect or a customer. That is where we're all going to live over the next decade.
No question. So that's amazing, right? So basically what you're saying is you need to bring this person on your team. Like you need someone who can span the different departments. So where do they report into, by the way? Where does head of RevOps? Is that into the CRO, the CMO, into the CEO? Like where do they report into?
Differently. But mostly I see it reporting into the CRO. Okay. Mostly I see it in the CRO. And what ends up happening with this role is that it takes sales ops, it takes marketing ops, and it takes some like BI. And it puts it all into one centralized place.
That makes sense. Yep.
Obviously super important in the way that we're all thinking about how we continue to grow our businesses efficiently.
Well, as you described data as your infrastructure, and your head of RevOps owns that infrastructure. 100%. So if we kind of let's bookend this. You started by saying data is infrastructure and you need a head of RevOps. Even if it's not like the most senior person in the world, you need someone who's sorting through all of your data, cleaning it up, using tools like ZoomInfo to try and like create a single source of truth, and then consolidating all of your signals to interpret who you should be talking to, prioritizing which companies you should be engaging with. This is amazing. Like this is like truly like, I don't know that people realize how much insight, like I'm sure they do. They're smarter than me.
At least you do, Dave. And that's all.
No, I'm excited by it. That's all. Then we're good. No, dude, this is so valuable as a marketer, because these things are, and look, we have individual contributors at this event, all the way up to CEOs and CMOs. But I think there's stuff to be learned that you've shared that can be applied to everybody. So like this has been like super
Dave,
valuable.
Before we go, when we started, you said that there was one other question I haven't touched on at all, which is post-COVID. What is the world like post-COVID?
I know.
I'll take 1 minute to say.
Do it. If you have the time, I'll take it for sure.
I am on the road meeting customers every single week, and I'm in their offices, and partners are in their offices. And so I don't, from meeting your customers and meeting your partners, you are at a disadvantage if you are not on the road meeting your customers and meeting your partners and being a great partner to them in person. Makes a huge difference. And so if your competition is out there doing it and you're not, you are behind.
You're in trouble.
That's when dominoes fall around this thing, is that we can all say that flexible work from home and all of this stuff is the most important thing and it's the new wave. But the minute your competitor is out there meeting your clients and shaking their hands and trying to solve their problems in person, you're going to be out there too, unless you want to lose.
So
go ahead.
The COVID hey, we work from home. We don't do this in person. That's kind of done. Like we can still work from home, but we better be belly to belly, meeting with customers, meeting with prospects.
100%. You got to be out there meeting with, and I will tell you, look, there are some things, and like it's blasphemy because I never went out there and told my teams we were going to be remote first and remote forever. It's a little bit
that is blasphemy
for me to tell you this, but there are some things that I actually am more productive doing either from home or some other place. So like a coffee shop, a library, there are things that, once a week I can get more out of myself when I'm somewhere else. And I'm okay with that. Listen, once a week, twice a week, you want to change it up to drive productivity and creativity. Great. But the rest of the time we should be in an office together, collaborating with one another, learning from one another. And we absolutely should be out there meeting our customers.
So Henry's last point, people buy from people. They don't buy from screens, right? They buy from people, and they buy through relationships and friendships and trust.
Yep. Yeah,
this is amazing.
We met a decade ago, maybe more.
I
still remember where we were. We were in Minneapolis at an AAISP conference. And 100%. We've had a close relationship ever since that meeting. And would we have as close of a relationship if we never met in person? I don't think so. Wouldn't be
no way. No, you can't. You can get to know people, but like that bond happens. There's something about the kind of the human animal that when we're talking in person, like we went to lunch, you spoke at Silicon Slopes, and we went to a lunch, and it's just like you connect with people when you're with them. So
different way. Yep.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah, it's different.
So go do that with your customers, and go do that with Do that. Yeah.
It's amazing. Henry, you're the best. You're amazing. Thank you for everything you've shared. Thank you for your leadership in the space. And I'd say everyone go forth, execute. Let's run the play.
Run the play. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Henry and Dave. Congrats again to all the nominees and award winners. Make sure to check out our free RevTech offer, the Tech Stack Review for 2024. You can download it for free at revtechsummit.com. Up next, we have Sangram, the founder of GTM Partners and Wall Street Journal's best-selling author of Move. His work has significantly influenced the marketing world, offering innovative go-to-market frameworks that have reshaped how businesses approach their market strategies. Sangram's journey in the tech and marketing sectors is marked by notable achievements, including co-founding Terminus, a pioneering account-based marketing platform, and the Peak Community, a platform dedicated to the advancements of marketing leaders. Sangram will be discussing the future of go-to-market. Off to you, Sangram.
Sangram here, excited to be part of this thing. And after the keynote from Henry and Dave, I feel like it's the right time to jump into the future of go-to-market, because a lot of the mega trends and mega things that they talked about is going to directly align with, well, what are you going to do next, especially in the world of go-to-market. So let me share with you the 7 predictions that we have as go-to-market research and advisory firm around go-to-market. And we have been writing about this, and there will be a link posted a little bit later in the presentation. So you don't just go right now, just give me a few minutes until you go through this. But I'm going to go rapid fire these 7 predictions, and I'm going to give you insight into it. So if you have a pen and paper, write it down so that you can keep along with it. And that's why I didn't want to use any slides. I want you to really soak in and think about it. And as I share this, hopefully you can start thinking about how does that apply to your organization. Because here's the fact. 82% of the companies have shared that their entire sales velocity pipeline has dipped over quarter, year over year. And we keep looking at that from the go-to-market benchmark and research reports that we write. But then there's something new that's happening. There's some new interesting opportunities that are coming up, and we sometimes seems to not focus on them. We keep sometimes focus on the things that are not working, but I'm here to share with you the 7 different areas where hopefully you can start seeing a glimmer of hope around go-to-market and where the market is moving. And maybe you get a chance to start dip into it earlier than your competitors, and the rest of the market really wakes up and becomes a status quo after that. So number one, let me share with you that the number one prediction that we have is that partnership is going to drive way more sales, bigger deals, bigger opportunities in the companies than your traditional sales teams. Let me say that again. Partnerships is going to drive a lot more revenue for your organization than your traditional sales team. Now, here's why. The way buyers are buying right now is we all know, we are all buyers too. So this is not new. We're not talking about an alien on a planet. We're just talking about ourselves. We all know our buying habits have changed. But what's even different about all of this is that people already know what they want to buy and how they want to go about it. And partnerships is a better way to create that model. Now, a lot of people don't really understand partnerships. And typically in most organizations, partnership is almost a third wheel. Nobody's really thinking about it. They don't really have budget. People think these are long sales cycles. Something might come out of it. And there is no real thought and budget put around it. We have identified in the research 5 different types of partnerships that companies should think about. And most companies that we in our research find successful have at least 2 or 3. So here are the 5 types. And I'm just going to look at my research note and you'll get that in a few minutes. It's channel-led, ecosystem-led, referral, affiliate, and reseller. So those are the 5 different types of marketing ways for the partnerships. Now, here is another area that you want to look at. When we did the research, we find out that the companies who do partner-led growth, and again, I want to be very clear about it. Partner-led meaning doesn't mean that partnership is the only go-to-market motion you're focused on, but has partner-led as a strategic go-to-market motion. They're having success over 114%. And we were shocked at looking at these numbers because we were thinking about, well, the market is slowing down. 82% of the companies are showing less velocity in sales. How is it that partnerships are showing 114% growth? Well, the issue there is that most companies don't have it. Most companies have literally nobody looking at the numbers in it. And when they look, they're shocked at it and they want to do more of it. So if you might want to consider in your organization and look at your go-to-market process and say, do we have partnerships as a strategic lever? All right, that's one. Number 2, demand for integrated tools is going to go high. So if you're a vendor today who's selling technology, who's selling something as a software, as a company, as a service out there, what companies are looking for, what your buyers are really looking for is, show me something that is integrated with the existing tech stack we have. So for example, if you come out there today and say, I have the best-in-class solution for this, there was a time for that. Nobody cares about that. It's almost standing on a freeway saying that, hey, free car wash, but it's a freeway. So people are going fast. Nobody's stopping looking at your sign because that's not the place for you to be. So right now, the market is not going to be kind to people who have the best of the best solution and they're just on a freeway saying, we got the best solution. The market is going to reward companies who say, hey, we have a great solution. And guess what? It integrates with your existing tech stack of X, Y, and Z so that you can get a much higher value out of not only our tool, but also all the things that you already have. Now, that's the kind of language a CFO is going to be okay with, the CMO, CRO, CEO, all of them are going to be okay with. So the future, the future of go-to-market specifically, and if you're a vendor right now who's selling technologies, is going to be for companies who can show that integrated substrata within it so that you can say, we have a solution that's going to make everything better for you. So that's number 2, integration, demand for that one is going to grow. So partnership is number 1. Number 2 is integrated. Number 3, this is very near and dear to me, is the land and expand motion. Now, most people understand that very differently. At least I did. Land and expand to me meant that, I'm going to land a big whale and we're going to expand within it. We're going to close, let's say, Salesforce, one business unit, and we're going to expand within Salesforce. Well, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is, let's say your sales team is supposed to close deals that are worth 100K. They're enterprise AE reps, and that's what their job is. They're going after enterprises and trying to sell 100K. The market is not in favor of going for big deals right now. So what do? Either the reps are going to be frustrated, and which is why the data suggests that there's a slow down on velocity because they're starting to close $100,000 deal when the market is allowing only for this much of money to be spent. The better way to do this, and some of these companies are starting to look at it, and our data suggests that they are reducing the cost of the first install. So for example, if you have a 100K product that's a platform, and you're saying, you know what, to get started early, we're going to reduce it to 20K, 25K, and we're going to get a lighter version of our product. We're going to just get in and help you get going. So all of a sudden, you might look at that and say, whoa, so you saying take the 100K product or a platform to 25? No. What I'm saying is take the 100K one, put it in 25K chunk, get in early so you increase the velocity of the deals that you can walk in. And once you're in, as you prove yourself over a period of the next year or two, you're going to get not only over 100K, but maybe 150K or more. And that's what NRR is all about. It's not about landing a 100K deal, take a 2-year time period to close it. And who knows, the people change and all of those things happen. So now you're back to square one, as opposed to get in early, getting at a smaller deal size, and then prove your mettle and then drive your business forward. That's a better way to get NRR, and that's great velocity. So land and expand, not with big whales, but with whales with smaller deals, is going to change the way your velocity works. So that's number 3. So we talk partnership, demand for integrated solutions, land and expand. Number 4, for most of you who know me, I've been in, I ran marketing at Pardot, was with Salesforce for a few years. I've co-founded Terminus and now Go-to-Market Partners, which is a research advisory firm. All along in my last 15 years, I have focused on inbound and outbound, right? Inbound and ABM. That's what I'm focused on. The market is not in favor of that right now. In some cases, it might be. Maybe your product leans itself into more of that. But our research shows that most successful companies have 3 or more go-to-market motions. And what are those go-to-market motions? We can drop the link now for the GTM Monday. We write a research note every Monday, and it is a whole slew of all the stuff I'm talking about in a lot more detail. There are 6 go-to-market motions that we need to think about. It's inbound, outbound, PLG, event-led. We already talked about partner-led, and then community-led. The point of all of this is most companies struggle to move away from inbound and outbound because most founders and companies and even the VC or PE firms are only aware of these 2 ways of going to market. But guess what? Better companies, your buyers, are looking for a better way to engage. And a lot of times they're going to engage in a community. Maybe that's where your buyers are. So go and build a community or sponsor a community or be part of that. Some of the partners we work with, we do events with them. It's called the Go-to-Market Made Simple Roadshow. We do a roadshow almost every single month in a different city because that's what the enterprise client of direct and above want to engage in. So that's what we do. So you got to find out how your customers are going to engage. And if they engage in a certain way, that's where you go and engage with them, not by hiring a bunch of salespeople, not by always hiring a content machine and saying, we're going to write 3 blogs, we're going to have 5 SDRs and 3 AEs. That model might work for some, but it's no longer going to be the model that is going to be blessed upon in 2024 and above, because that's not what the market desires. I literally install, I kid you not, an app to not have any calls on my call that comes in all like 9 or 10 times a day. I have all these calls. So the market has changed. The buyers have changed. You and I are buyers. We are not looking for another sales call. We're looking to be engaged. And the way we engage is much different now, not just based on inbound and outbound. So you got to think about more than one go-to-market motion. All right, number 5. This is probably going to hit home for some of you right now. Most of us, if you're in any company, as we service Intel, Zoom Info, because Henry was on the call before this, so they're a customer of ours. Honeywell, all the way to early stage companies. And what we find is every company, this is really interesting. Every single company has these 2 things in common. Everyone has a smaller team, literally smaller team. It doesn't matter what kind of company you are. You have a smaller team than it was, and you have smaller budget. So when the teams are smaller and the budget is less, what do? You have you are trying to do all those things together, but the revenue numbers are still the same, if not more. So you have to hit higher targets with a smaller team. There is a gap there. How do you do that? The way we think about, and this is the fifth part, which is more and more companies are going to rely on fractional leaders. More and more companies are going to rely on fractional leaders. So at the strategic level, more companies are going to hire a fractional go-to-market leader, or fractional sales leader, or fractional marketing leader who ends up being there for 2 days a week, part of their strategic marketing plans, part of their strategic go-to-market. But beyond that, you're going to have a set of doers in the company who are going to just execute on that plan. So that's a big shift. None of us are aware or have built our careers in the last 20 years on that notion. We always valued the internal person. But companies are starting to look at this and saying, I don't know if I'm going to hire a 300K marketing or sales or go-to-market leader. Instead, I'll rather have somebody 2 days a week for 100K or 150K, and that person already is working in 5 other companies, so he or she is always going to be smart about what's happening in the marketplace, use latest research around it. But at the executive level, I just need the input of what needs to be done. I need doers to do it. So I'm going to keep the team small, but then continue to expand my strategic go-to-market fractional group. So we're going to see more and more of that. That's a big shift that's going to happen, and already happening in most companies because of how the budgets and the revenue numbers are. All right, number 6. This is probably your favorite, generative AI. What's happening with AI? We believe AI is going to only bring human creativity, and you probably have heard that before, but here is an example of that. I can sniff emails that are generated by AI. I can sniff articles that are generated by AI. I can sniff LinkedIn posts generated by AI. And when I say I mean you and I, the buyers. We can all see that. So the creativity is no longer left in those things, and people can literally see that. You can somehow, our brain has started to really see, like, oh, that's clearly not authentic. That's clearly not real. That's clearly not something that I see volumes, but I don't see quality in it. So the original research, the original content, the original creativity is going to be incredibly rewarded in the marketplace. So whatever you're doing, you can use AI to create better update on the existing list, enrich the list. You can use AI for follow-ups. You can use AI for a whole bunch of things, and you absolutely should. But now is the opportunity to say, you know what? I'm glad I'm not doing that 30% of the work. I can now use AI to do that and spend more time on creativity. Last but not the least, and this is my personal favorite, I feel that in all the things I've worked on in the past 20 years, this is the part that has been so true. And this never changed. And it's one of those things that are irrefutable, and it's never going to change, which is the brand of a business. And brand and authenticity of individuals is going to be, is at the all-time high. It's supreme right now. So if you can be a company, and if you can be the voice of your organization or your category or your message, whatever tribe that you're trying to represent, and you can be authentic around it, you're going to have the most value. So in the research note that's dropped in the link over there, we wrote about each one of them. We talked about partnerships, demand, being for integrated solutions. We talked about fractionals, how AI and examples of that, the land and expand, how do you get started early on those companies. Inbound and outbound won't be enough. You have other 4 go-to-market motions to think about, and then AI and brand authenticity is going to be supreme. So all in all, what I want to end this conversation is with this quote. This is my favorite quote. It's something that I've felt and learned and have been on for a number of years, and I've seen that and say that all the time. And here it is: being intentional is more important than being brilliant. I want to hear this again. I want you to really dial in. Maybe you are a note taker like me. Take a note of this thing. This has helped me so much. And right now, as you hear all these different keynotes and things, it's going to be a lot of ideas. But here is what's going to be the most rewarding for you. Being intentional is more important than being brilliant. If you heard all 7 of my ideas really well, and you picked one of them and went all in on it, you'll be more successful in 2024 than you can even imagine. But if you took all 7 ideas and tried to do a little bit on everything, you probably will not do anything, and you may just fumble around. Pick one. Take one of this and go all in with it. Bring your team together. drive the organization forward, and the future go-to-market belongs to the one who are intentional. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of the keynote.
Thank you so much, Sangram, for a great presentation. So much to learn from an incredible industry leader. A quick reminder, the 10 a.m. blocks have been released. Those have speakers like Tim Harsh, CEO of Owler, Kyle Coleman, CMO of Copy.ai, Latney, CRO of Six Sense, Ryan Westwood, CEO of Fullcast, Heidi Barnett, CEO of Applicant Pro. And then we have a great panel with 4 really awesome leaders, Jaron Robin, Molly Reidensteiner, Lisa Kelly, and Adam Joy. So make sure to go check those out at the RevTechSummit.com. Up next, we will be joined with Megan Bowen, CEO of Refine Labs, a B2B digital marketing and demand generation agency. She creates the conditions for people, customers, and companies to be successful. Refine Labs combines modern demand gen strategy, measurement framework, paid media, and creative execution to drive more web conversions, resulting in more qualified pipeline and more closed-won revenue. She'll be discussing revenue performance assessment, split the funnel analysis. Okay, Megan, I'm going to go ahead and add you in.
Hey, Jenny. Hi, everyone.
Hey. Yeah. So if you want to go ahead, I know you had some slides. Whenever you're ready, you can always add those in, and I can make sure that they're added to the stage.
All right, awesome. I'm going to go ahead and share my presentation. Hold on a second. Oh, got it. Is it you? Do you guys want me to upload the file, or can I directly share my screen?
You should be able to share your screen. There's
Here it is.
an option to share screen.
Okay. All right, awesome. Are you seeing this revenue performance assessment?
Yep,
All right.
and I just added it to the stage for you, so you should be good to go.
Awesome, awesome.
Thank you, Megan.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, just getting set up here so we can walk through the presentation together. Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Bowen. I am the CEO of Refine Labs. I'm really excited to chat through a very tactical but hugely strategic assessment that every B2B company should be doing every 6 months so that they can be pressure testing everything that they're doing and continuing to optimize their go-to-market strategy, ultimately to help grow pipeline and revenue. So let's set the stage. Why are we talking about this? My belief is in 2024, marketing should be accountable for revenue. But today, a lot of companies just don't analyze their marketing performance specifically with revenue in mind. A lot of companies still only look at total number of leads generated or potentially meetings set from marketing sourced initiatives. And there's no rigor or analysis around how many of those leads actually convert to pipeline and revenue. And so the session today will equip you all with information, resources, a strategy, and an approach so that you can start taking a look at everything that you've done up until this point to identify what's driving pipeline and revenue and what isn't. And all of these insights will help inform your go-forward go-to-market strategy. So what we've seen here at Refine Labs over the last 4 years, we've done this analysis at over 200 B2B companies. And what we have seen definitively is that not all leads are created equal. And so the split the funnel analysis that we're going to walk through today, the primary conclusion that you will find for your business, and using your data, you'll have your own nuances and specifics that will really highlight how this applies to your business context. But you will 100% be able to see how high intent pipeline sources and low intent pipeline sources actually mature through the funnel and how both of them contribute to pipeline and revenue. And what you're seeing in this visual here, when you think about high intent sources, a couple of examples are your request a demo form on your website or your contact sales form on your website. A couple examples of low intent sources are maybe gated content. Hey, here's a white paper, but you need to give me your email address before I'm going to let you download this PDF. Or here's a content syndication website where I'm going to pay them to give me contact information and leads. When you actually separate out your high intent and your low intent sources, and you look at how many leads are required to create opportunities and then convert to customers, you'll see a significant difference in funnel performance. And so today, we're going to walk through the split the funnel analysis. So the goal of doing this is so that you can leverage your historical data, understand what programs are driving pipeline and revenue, uncover key insights, and make sure that your go-forward strategy is taking all of those into account. There's actually 3 steps to conduct a complete revenue performance assessment today. We're gonna focus on the second step, but I just wanted to provide a little bit more context around the full revenue performance assessment process. And so step 1 is the pipeline source analysis. This is intended to take a look at all of your opportunities and aggregate them by pipeline source. It is an input to the split the funnel analysis, which is then taking all of your opportunities by pipeline source, breaking them out between high intent and low intent, and measuring a variety of key metrics across that data set. And then lastly, the third step, especially for companies that are investing a lot in paid advertising or digital programs, doing a deep dive into all of your paid programs to glean additional data and insights that will be helpful for your strategy. So again, we're going to focus in on step 2 of the revenue performance assessment, that split the funnel analysis. And really doing this is going to help you achieve 3 primary objectives. So we're going to actually get into a lot of the data specifics in just a minute, but one of the things I just wanted to note is it's very common for any company not to have a perfect data set, right? And we don't expect that. You can still get a ton of value out of this analysis without having perfectly clean data. However, this analysis will surface what infrastructure gaps and data gaps that you do have in your system. And so that in and of itself is hugely valuable, because then you'll be able to understand the changes you need to make to your systems to collect as much of the data that is available so that you can have more insightful and accurate data sets and analyses going forward. The second benefit of doing the split the funnel analysis is that you're going to clearly be able to tell which programs, which pipeline sources are driving the most pipeline and revenue. And it will become pretty obvious which pipeline sources are very inefficient. And even if they might be providing a significant volume of leads, they might not be contributing anything or a very insignificant amount to pipeline and revenue. And so there's some pretty impactful insights to be gained from completing this analysis that'll not only improve your overall marketing strategy and the ROI on your marketing dollars, but actually be key insights for just the business overall. So let's get into the specifics here. So how to set up the analysis. Ultimately, we're going to be pulling data from your CRM and your marketing automation platform. And here is the set of data that's most important for this analysis to be meaningful. We're going to want to look at opportunity stages, pipeline sources. We actually want to be able to understand the creation date of the opportunity, the close date, the age, how long the opportunity was open, any additional lead source detail that might be available. For example, if the lead came in via a paid Google search program, the total revenue associated with that opportunity, and any campaign conversion point details that may or may not be available. So when you are taking a look at the data set that you have, it's really important to look at a couple of key metrics. And so I'm going to walk through the three arguably most important in conducting this split the funnel analysis. So the first one that I want to talk about is the lead to opportunity conversion rate. And so what this is looking at is out of all the leads that are coming into the funnel. So again, taking a step back, this is, let's say you're running, you've built a white paper, you're running a lead gen, a gated content campaign on maybe LinkedIn, for example, and you're collecting a lead for every person that submits their name and email address to download that white paper. Those are all coming in as leads. You might also have event registration. So you're hosting a webinar or maybe a live event, and you're collecting people's contact and email addresses to sign up for that event, and you classify that as a lead in your system. You've built a contact sales requested demo form on your website, and you're deploying a paid social campaign to drive some traffic to that page in order to get people to book a call with your sales team. Those are counting as leads as well. There might be a variety of other programs that you have running. What we want to understand is how many of those leads, what percentage of those leads actually will convert to opportunity. The primary conclusion that you're getting from this particular metric is really around lead quality. So if you take a look at the charts that we have here, let me point out a couple of things that you might be noticing yourselves. So what we will often see is you might actually be able to acquire a huge volume of leads from a gated content download or a webinar registration, but the percentage of those leads that are actually going to convert to an opportunity and then revenue is going to be much, much lower than, for example, a lead that comes in and completes your request a demo form on your website. And so by being able to look at this metric, not in aggregate, not by just sales and marketing, but by actual pipeline source, you're going to get some really interesting insights on what pipeline sources are primarily contributing to the opportunities and the closed won revenue that you're seeing in your business. Oops. Sorry about that. Here we go. Let's talk about lead to win rate. So for those of you that are listening in live, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We're going to get pretty specific with some of these data slides to deep dive and give you guys some really practical takeaways. So the next metric that you will be taking a look at in the split the funnel analysis is the lead to win rate percentage. And so let's break down this concept. So the point here, some channels are going to have a very low lead to win rate percentage, and others are going to have a much higher percentage. And so I want to talk through a couple of scenarios that we typically see when conducting this analysis. So scenario one, let's say that your cost per lead for a particular channel is $40. You might actually say, wow, it only cost me $40 to get that lead. That's a low amount of money. Like, let's keep doing this program because the cost per lead is so low and affordable. So what happens though is, what if you only actually win 0.1% of those leads? So out of 1,000 leads that only cost you $40 per lead, $40,000 total, only one of those will actually convert to an opportunity. if your average annual contract value is, let's say, 20K per year, your CAC payback period for that source is now 2 years. So while that $40 might seem like a good cost per lead on the surface, the low lead to win rate percentages make this actually a very, very expensive program to continue to maintain. So this is the trap that so many companies are still falling victim to, and it's because they're not looking at the data through this particular lens. Now, let's look at sort of the other side of it, right? The alternative scenario. Let's say your lead to win percentage for a particular source is 3%, not 0.1%. This means that you'll close 3 opportunities for every 100 leads that are generated from that particular source or program. In this scenario, you're actually spending 10x per lead, but you're still going to achieve a lower customer acquisition cost overall, as well as a shorter payback period, because you're actually going to close more opportunities at a higher value. And so this is the big aha moment that companies will enjoy when they go through this analysis, either doing it themselves or working with us to get that done. The last thing I want to talk through here is the third really insightful and valuable data point, which is win rate by pipeline source. And so this will be really eye-opening because this is how you're going to be able to start to make some more concrete conclusions about where you might want to be reallocating a lot of your marketing budget investments. And so here is, you're going to be able to see by gated content, content syndication, the demo, the contact us demo request form. You're going to start to really clearly see your high intent pipeline sources and your low intent pipeline sources. And the entire premise here is that you should be anchoring the majority of your budget on programs that are going to drive more high intent leads, because we know that those are going to convert to opportunities and revenue at a higher win rate. Let's take a moment and talk through the actual practical realities of what this means. So when I speak with executives and heads of marketing and try to walk through these concepts, I like to talk about it in terms of how we all as individuals like to learn about new products and make decisions in a B2B buying context. So what this is really saying is, how many of you have decided, okay, I really want to get this benchmark report, so I'm going to give up my email address for it. Or, wow, that event or that webinar that company is hosting looks really interesting. They're having this speaker that I would really love to see speak. I'm going to go ahead and sign up for the event. Just because you wanted that benchmark report, just because you signed up for that event, that doesn't mean you're ready to buy that product that company is selling. And effectively, what happens with most people today is once you submit that email address through the form or through the event registration, at some point in the near future, you're going to be enrolled in some type of nurture email cadence. Someone on their sales team is going to reach out to you and see if you're interested in setting up a demo to learn more. And the reality is your intent to buy the product was actually fairly low in those particular scenarios that we just went through. Now, if you're actually someone that is actively searching for a particular solution to a problem that you've had, you've done your own internet research, you've actually ended up on a website and you've said, I'd like to see a demo of this product, or I would like to have a call with the salesperson. Obviously, your intent to seriously consider that product for purchasing is significantly higher. And the company is more likely to convert you into a customer than if you just downloaded their benchmark report. And so common sense and logic really backs up this analysis. But often in the context of, if you're a marketing leader at a company, it can be challenging to make that point to your leadership team by just expressing those anecdotes that I shared. So this analysis here will really put hard, concrete numbers from your company's systems behind these points that I'm conveying now, and really get the requisite buy-in needed to make some potentially pretty significant strategy and investment adjustments for your marketing and your entire go-to-market strategy. So let's talk a little bit more about what you learn from doing this analysis. So a disclaimer here is every company is different. Every set of data is different. People have different dynamics in their businesses. And so doing this analysis for your business is always going to generate very specific insights that will be valuable for your business, and maybe your business only. However, what we found in doing this analysis for hundreds and hundreds of companies is there are a lot of common trends and findings and recommendations that we see over and over and over again when we conduct this analysis. So what I wanted to share in advance of each of you doing your own revenue performance assessment and split the funnel analysis is some of these common takeaways and recommendations that we see. So number one, we pretty much see this across the board, that discontinuing your gated content or your direct response lead gen campaigns on awareness channels like LinkedIn and Facebook is generally the right thing to do. In very few and rare cases, do we actually see that those pipeline sources meaningfully convert to pipeline and revenue? And the reason is for what we've sort of just discussed. People that are giving you their contact information aren't necessarily actually looking to buy your product. They're just interested in the information that you're providing. So it's a low intent pipeline source. Now, our general recommendation here is to think about, they actually do want your information. So you must be putting out some good content. And that's awesome. That's actually going to help your company grow and build awareness and acquire more customers. But you should reconsider that gating the content isn't doing you any favors, and just collecting their email address isn't really enough to actually make a sale. And so we always recommend that all campaigns on LinkedIn and Facebook are focused more on not requiring your target audience to give you any information for them to get the benefit and the value that you're providing on those particular channels. So number two, you should really be focusing your efforts on lead sources that are going to be most impactful. And so what we see is when people come to your website and raise their hand and say that they're ready to have a sales conversation, that those are most likely to convert to opportunities and revenue. So how can we think about what are the right set of strategies, tactics, and programs that we can deploy that are going to actually drive more qualified buyers to your website so that they can raise their own hand when they're ready to have a sales conversation? It is a pretty significant mindset shift that those that have already made that shift or are making it now are already starting to see the benefit. And if you can continue to drive up more qualified, more high intent conversions, that's how you're actually going to see that compounding growth that we all want to see in our businesses. So number three, what's really great about this particular analysis is it will actually surface so many different data points and insights and feedback. And this will actually give you an opportunity, for example, to take this to your sales leader and have a conversation about how you all can work together to leverage the insights and the feedback that you're getting from this data. Maybe the sales team actually agrees that calling people after they download the benchmark report isn't working. And they want to be a good partner to marketing to figure out how we can drive more of those high intent versus low intent leads into the funnel. The next step is once you do this, it's really important to really come up with a plan of what you're going to be doing next. And I always like to surface that very common approach of stop, start, continue. So after you complete this analysis, there are probably some investments and some programs that you are running that you should actually just stop doing completely. They literally have no material impact on pipeline and revenue. They're not aligned to how B2B buyers are buying today. You should just stop doing that stuff. It's not working. Then there's probably some new things that you should consider that you should start doing that you're not doing today, to ensure that as you start to turn down programs, you can reallocate that budget to new programs that might be even more impactful. Maybe investing more in your content marketing strategy, or starting a podcast, or assembling a customer advisory board to fuel more word of mouth in your target buying audience. And then continue. When you do this analysis, you'll find that I'm sure there's many things that are working. So how are we going to continue to do those things that are working? And how are we going to continue to optimize those strategies so that they can continue to perform even better? What I always recommend when we work with a marketing team or marketing leader to conduct this analysis is that it's really important to share this information with the full C-level executive team and potentially even the board. And so being able to put together a deck and manage up and share the results as well as the strategic recommendations can be really valuable for executive teams and boards to really, truly better understand what's going on in marketing. This actually also can be really impactful for future forecasting and goal setting, to have realistic historical benchmarks on performance, and understanding based on the go forward strategy where we expect to see improvement across different programs, and then the relative impact on pipeline and revenue. And then step 3 of the revenue performance assessment, we're not going to get into that too deep today, but that's that sort of paid media deep dive audit, going in and actually analyzing all of your Google Ads campaigns, your paid social campaigns at the actual all the way through to the campaign level will certainly give you additional insights of, which specific campaigns may be underperforming, which ones are performing well, again, resulting in insights that will help you craft your go forward strategy. So everything that I talked about today, I wanted to make sure that what we went over, you all listening would be able to take what you've learned and apply it to your business. And I'm really excited to announce, if you go ahead and head over to refinelabs.com, you can actually click on the Vault and you can get access to a free trial of the Vault. That includes a full set of resources so that you can conduct your own revenue performance assessment at your company. You'll actually have all the information you need to conduct the pipeline source analysis, to conduct the split the funnel analysis, as well as the paid media deep dive. We'll give you a Google Sheet template that you can actually make a copy of and give you really specific instructions of the reports that you need to pull out of your Salesforce, your HubSpot, Marketo, and the data that you need to enter into the template that we provide that will help visualize and calculate all of the metrics that we went over today. We've even put together a presentation template that'll allow you to actually take your specific data set and drop in the data that you have for your company, as well as the visualizations of the key metrics that we went over, to make it really easy for you to not only conduct the analysis yourself, but actually put together a presentation that you can share and walk through with your executive team so that they all understand the great work that you've done and the insights that you've gathered on what you all need to do going forward to meaningfully improve the growth trajectory of the company. So I would encourage all of you to check it out, to download those free resources, and to conduct this assessment. Every single time we've done this for a company, they have learned something that they did not know that has made a meaningful shift to their marketing strategy that has resulted in improved business results for the company. So it's a very practical way to have a really strategic impact on the work that you're doing to grow your business. So I hope this was helpful. I know we're kind of coming up on the hour. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions related to this topic if you want to drop them in the chat. Otherwise, you can always reach out to me on LinkedIn if you have any questions or need any help conducting your own revenue performance assessment.
Great. Thank you, Megan. I actually had a few questions. So you mentioned the free access to the vault. Is this a short time deal or is this like something they can access here moving forward?
It's a great question. So the free account gives you access to 10 of our vault resources. For now, there's no time limit, but actually we're going to have a big announcement coming late March and early April about the next evolution for the vault. So I encourage people that are interested in checking out the free resources to get in there as soon as possible because some big things are coming and we're going to be making some changes.
Yeah, thank you. And then you also mentioned like gating content. I know one point of conversation is whether it's better to gate it or ungate it. What would you recommend as far as gating goes? Do you just let people just access your content to kind of build their brand trust, or is there some advantage to still requiring emails to get that content?
Yeah, it's a great question. And so typically my rule of thumb is ungating the majority of your content is typically the winning strategy. More and more B2B buyers are, number one, either hesitant to give up their email for content, or even if they do, it doesn't really mean they're actually a marketing qualified lead that's ready for your sales team to speak to. So generally speaking, giving your content away for free, making it interesting and easy to consume is the most effective way that you're going to be able to get your message out. Certainly, there are specific instances and cases where it does make sense. Potentially, you might invest a lot of time and effort into a huge annual report that includes all these interesting benchmarks. And so there can be some, really flagship content assets that you want to put behind a gate. But as a general rule, you should ungate, and gating should be the exception.
Okay, that's great. I think that's really helpful to a lot of marketers, and I know it is such like a relevant topic of conversation because I don't know, speaking from experience as a marketer, I definitely always get like a little bit hesitant when it comes to that. So I guess just taking the leap of faith and just trusting that it'll work.
The way to think about it, Jenny, is think about yourself, right? Like if you're scrolling LinkedIn for something, you probably just want to be able to see what you want to see. You don't want to fill some form out. And so I think what I always try to remind people of is put yourself in your buyer's shoes. Like, do you want to go through that process yourself? What if a salesperson reached out to you after? Would you respond? Is that how you would want to engage with that company? It's really interesting because whenever you ask someone the question in that regard, they'll be typically pretty honest about like, yeah, that doesn't really work for me, or I just ignore it, or I put in a fake email address. But when it comes to actually being in the hot seat, it's an easy tactic to go to because it's how so many marketing teams have done it for so long.
Oh yeah, like I'm definitely the worst at that. I'm always putting the 8675309 as my phone number. So yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. One last question. So you talk about buyer's intent, and that's really like a reason you shouldn't gate content is because like most people who are looking to get that content aren't actually looking to buy. So what are you guys doing at Refine Labs to really help identify those buyers' intent and identify their signals for when they're ready to buy?
Yeah, and I think this really just goes back to over the last 10 to 20 years, there has just been an undeniable shift in how B2B buyers consume information, learn about products, and make purchasing decisions. And the reality is most people will actually get 60 to 70% of the way through your sales process before you ever talk to them. And most people only want to talk to a salesperson once they've done a certain amount of research on their own. Once they've actually spoken with their peers in the space and said, "Hey, what tech are you using to solve this problem? Well, what's your opinion on the difference between 6sense and demand base?" Right? It's just a different world now with the advent of social media and more peer-to-peer engagement and Slack communities, and just the general evolution of the internet and the amount of information that people can find out on their own without having to sit through a sales call. So that's what's happening here. And so what you want to be doing is understanding that reality and playing within that game. And so what that means is, how can I make content and information available to my audience where they're already spending their time without asking them to do anything to consume that information? And the reality is they'll come to your website when they're ready to speak with you. Now, that said, you do have 2 to 5% of your market that's actively looking to buy your product today. They're going to be on channels like Google Search, Bing, maybe on G2, Capterra. So you can be really smart about how you're leveraging your paid programs on those demand capture channels to make sure that for those people that are in market, yeah, let's capture that demand and let's bring them to our website and get them in front of a salesperson as soon as possible. But you have to then recognize that, the other 95% of your market that doesn't want to buy today, they don't want to give you their contact information. They're not ready to talk to your salesperson today, but they still would be willing to learn about your product, your brand, your unique value proposition. So how are you effective at communicating your content to them while focusing on effectively capturing the demand? And what you'll see is, if you're good at doing both, you're capturing demand today and you're creating demand for tomorrow, at which point those buyers that initially weren't in market become in market. And in fact, they already know you. So maybe they're even just coming straight to your website and raising their hand on their own.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Megan. A lot of really great information. And then I'm just going to do the little reminder, check out the Vault, Refine Labs. It'll definitely be worth your time to run that analysis.
Thanks for the questions, Jenny. They were great. I appreciate you all having me on.
Yeah, thank you, Megan. Bye. Great. So up next, we will be joined with Lindsay Tishgart, the CMO at Mediafly. She's a senior marketing leader who enjoys helping companies establish and strengthen their brands. Lindsay has built her career being strategic, resourceful, and creative, supporting a wide range of companies from startups to Fortune 500 companies, including Microsoft, AMD, Symantec, Travelocity, Austin City Limits, BMC Software, and others. Lindsay will be discussing conquering indecision using value selling to win over the C-suite. Hey, Lindsay, welcome.
Hello, how are you today?
Doing good. How about yourself?
Good. I am just trying to get this presentation up for you.
Yeah, if it's taking some time to either upload, you can always do the share screen. If you just click present, it should give you that option.
Okay. Thank you for technical difficulties, right?
I mean, this is what happens on a live session, so it's okay. And if it'd be easier, you can always share the presentation with me and I can add it. If it's like a Google Slides or...
Yeah, why don't we do that actually? You want to send me the link?
Okay. I just put in our chat my email that you can send it to, and I'll get it added.
All right.
Okay, almost there.
Perfect. Thanks. Thanks everyone for being patient with us. Actually, coming at you today from Atlanta. So usually based in Austin and
Oh, nice.
traveling this week.
Okay, now it's not letting me do it. So just do some troubleshooting.
All right.
Let's see if I can find it. Okay. Can you click through it at all, or will it only allow me to do it? Put into presentation.
Not look like I can advance.
Okay, so what we may need to do is if you want to just say like next slide, and then I'll go ahead and just like click through it for you. Is that all right?
That's perfect. So thank you, Jenny. Thank you, everyone. Glad to be here today. I know there's a great lineup of speakers here to talk pretty much everything that you need to do to optimize the journey, but ultimately deals are getting stuck. I think we all know this. You can read LinkedIn, the rise of the no decision, everything is going up to the C-suite. So that's about what we're going to talk to today, how to break through and avoid the dreaded no decision. So Jenny, if you can go ahead and jump in to that next slide. So let's get started. The focus here today is speaking the language of the C-suite. And if you said money, you're not wrong, but that's really only part of it. Simply telling a prospect that they're going to save time, money, increase productivity, grow ARR really isn't enough. So Jenny, if you can just go ahead and jump along. I think what companies have done and what marketers have done for so long is, the generic case studies, testimonials, white papers, proposals that are sent over, pricing, and it's just not enough anymore. They're oversimplified. Generally, the reps can't explain what happened behind the scenes. They've got their talking points on the case study, but there's not enough there. They lack alignments with key initiatives, and the data ends up going out there without the storytelling. And what's even worse is they're not tied to the strategic initiatives. So we're going to go ahead and jump in and about how to take care of that. Jenny, if you can go ahead, click a couple, I think. Just keep going. Apologize all. This is the generic business case template just isn't enough anymore. So what we're going to talk about today, what is value selling? Why is it so important today? Given this is the RevTech Summit, we'll talk about the technology, how to scale across your org, and then we'll wrap up with just improving those C-level conversations. Let's keep going. So let's start first with what actually is value selling, and feel free to jump into the comments and chat about what you're doing with value selling. I'll try to keep my eyes on that as well. But at the core, value selling is the approach. It enables your team and your sellers and your customer success pros, let's definitely keep them in mind, to become more consultative, to focus less on the products, less on the features, less on the speed and feeds, and more on aligning with the strategic pillars that a company has in mind and what they uniquely consider impactful. So, in the past, our case studies and marketers really wanted to guide the discussion, but what we need to do right now is listen a lot more. It gives your team the opportunity to quantify and map their solution to those challenges, And then the great thing about it is it can really be done throughout the buyer's journey. And if you do it well, it actually can help really improve your discovery process. So let's jump to the next slide and talk a little bit about why this is so important today. So Gartner's out there telling us, and many of you have probably seen this, that access to the C-suite is getting harder. There's shorter sales cycles, higher prices, higher win rates, and getting value right, being able to communicate this is going to help you grow your accounts by as much as 5%. What you need to do, though, is enable those champions to actually get out there and get to the C-suite. And we've seen this a lot. We know that value selling can deliver, and when it's done right. So let's go ahead and keep talking through there. Many of you are facing this increased competition, the buyer-led journey. The buyers are very far through the sales cycle. And then simply there's just not budget in many cases. You've got new competitors that are lining up. Tools are really starting to consolidate, sprawl. And again, fewer dollars available. So the CFOs are in charge. We talked to a customer last week who they sell big deals, but they said even the smallest deals that they have are going up to the C-suite. And this customer said they were meeting with a healthcare CFO, and they basically said, I'm not approving any deal unless it maps to one of our 5 key initiatives. And when I do, I'm going to go with the one that the highest net present value. So it's really becoming less and less of an option to go into a deal without a business case. And Jenny, I know last session it was great interaction. So feel free to let me know if jump in and ask some questions, and let's get a dialogue going. I think happy to do that as well. So we did a study, and there's a lot of research out there. Buyers are really looking for every reason to walk away. For those of you who have read the Jolt book, you know that they're timid. They don't want to take on the risk. Are they actually risking their job? And the reasons that they're backing out of deals, there's many of them. But if you look at the top couple, especially that second one, they're simply not convinced that your product is worth the price and that it's going to make a big enough difference. So they're actually willing to stay with the status quo because you haven't convinced them that this is going to make a big enough difference. Let's go ahead, jump in, keep going. So thing is, it's not just getting harder to sell, which is what many of us are facing. It's also harder to buy. And the buyer is doing a majority of the research before they talk to the seller, and they've informed. When they do actually start to talk to the vendors, they generally come in with a short list, and they give just 5% of their time to let the seller make a difference. So what you're looking at there is, how do you give your seller everything they can do to make the most of every single conversation? And then when they're not talking to you during that dead period, how do you help them go make the case internally so they can act quickly, make an impact, and engage the rest of their team with value? You need to make every meeting count and really be lining up the business case throughout the process so that they will take it up to the C-suite and the people that need to make the decisions. The good news here is that buyers actually want this. 66% are saying that they want the ROI case. They want you to help them make an impact, make a difference, and help them go. And we've done some research as well, and high-performing organizations are much more likely to incorporate value assessments into their cycle, and not just make it a step in your process. Hey, let's check the box, but make it a core piece that actually drives the rest of the discussion. So let's keep going here. And I quoted Gartner before, but do love this chart. The reality is that this is a buyer study from last year, and business cases are at the very top of boosting confidence. So that's ahead of even free POCs. I think these days, many of us feel like we need to go out there and do a POC, and that's obviously an investment from your team, but the right type of business case development can drive that confidence home. So let's go ahead and get into the tech. What is really key here is the breadth of value selling solutions. So I think traditionally a lot of people have thought of it as a TCO calculator, an ROI calculator, sometimes the cost of doing nothing. But today there's so many more opportunities that you can infuse value throughout your sales cycle. We've talked about business cases, and we will talk about those a lot because they are at the core. But much broader, you can use value tools to really drive the discovery. So it's not just checking off the box and your seller's filling out a couple of questions, but you can guide them through, a WYSIWYG self-guided journey where it's dynamic and it changes based on the questions. You can do maturity assessments. Many marketers are using value tools for lead generation and to put them on the website, especially for PLG, to start to gain interest and to figure out how do I capture that data and how do I use that beyond. Proposal generation can be key as well, infusing that value so you don't just throw a number at them, but you're able to highlight your key differentiators and really speak to the messages from the top as well. So, what I'm probably hearing or what many of you are thinking, and it'd be great, feel free to post it in the chat. Many of you are likely saying we have a value team. They already do this, and that's great. The truth is that they'll love it. In most cases, value teams are understaffed and underfunded. So if you're lucky enough to have that in your organization, the question is, do you have enough value consultants? And you can stay on this slide, I think. Those value consultants are expensive resources, and they're often only earmarked for the biggest deals. And what we're really talking about today is how do you empower every seller to be the consultant? How do you empower each of one of them to really uncover those growth levers so that they can go in and every deal can get that same attention? This is where tech comes in because it allows you to scale that team's reach, to leverage the insights and all the great mind share that these value engineers have and roll it across your sales force. Some of you may also be thinking, oh, we've got a spreadsheet that does this. And spreadsheets can be great, but they also have a lot of challenges. So they're manual. They tend to lack credibility. Your sales reps are rarely able to explain the variables. They're not going to produce an output report. They're going to produce some numbers, but it's not going to have a lot of context. It's not going to tell a story with it. For those of you in marketing, you know that people buy on emotion. Even the CFO, they want that story alongside. There's also a lot of governance issues. You share the spreadsheet outside, and people can start to share that, maybe you don't want that deal. It gets exposed. So there's a lot of challenges with spreadsheets too, and this is where tech can really come in. I'm seeing a question in the chat. If you were meeting with a newer sales leader and marketing leader, what's the number one piece of advice you'd tell them that would help drive revenue? That's an interesting question. I think since we're talking here today about value, you have to personalize and customize. Generic just simply doesn't cut it. And you're leaving dollars on the table if you're not getting ahead of them. So they're telling you, many of you have conversation intelligence tools deployed in your organization. You're recording the conversations already. You're listening to them tell you explicitly what matters to them. And then you're probably going back to them and giving them, the proposal may have a line item or two, but you're not actually tying to their growth drivers. Each organization you meet with has something different that they're working towards. And the more you can tie to it and personalize, the more likely your project, your solution or service is going to rise to the top and be one of those that gets the checkbox. Let's go ahead and jump into the next slide here. So let's talk really about how to build an effective business case. And this will kind of dive into why tech really is important today. It's truly part of discovery. You want to identify the problem in the customer's actual language, using their exact words. Those are probably words that they're using internally in their meetings when they're having these decisions as well. You want to recommend your solution. It looks like we might have lost a couple words here, but that's great. But you don't want to just dive specifically into software product. You want to talk about how you're going to fix the problem in a way that maybe they haven't thought of. You're going to talk about your unique differentiators. You're going to help illustrate how they go from current state to the ideal state. when you talk about an impact on an organization, the details matter. So you're going to communicate, you want to validate it and really show similar customers that have done similar things. You want to talk about the additional benefits, the primary pain, who else stands to benefit. And a lot of times when you're doing this, the customer hasn't even thought through all the pain, all the ancillary challenges that their situation is creating. So if you do this properly, you can start to expose some of those throughout your process as well. And then finally, you're going to dive into a timeline. You want to keep it very realistic. You don't want to sugarcoat things just to get the deal, because it's going to set something up later. And then finally, the payoff, the investment summaries. So you're going to tie that together. This is what it matters, and this is how quickly you're going to be able to see your returns. So really talking about the benefits of RevTech and why this matters, it's scale. So whether you have 10 sellers or 100 sellers or 1,000 sellers, rarely can you go just deploy a tool. It's not like it's all tools. They don't just deploy on their own. So you want to make it as easy as possible for them to come in and self-serve. You want it to be dynamic. So ask yourself, do different industries use our solutions in different ways? Do they have different initiatives? Do they have different personas, company size? Does that matter? So what you want are solutions that are really going to allow you to change, when you click this box, that it actually creates almost a choose your own adventure, and it opens up the next box. It's not this standard for every industry, for every customer that you have. You're going to want to keep it governed, compliance, and you're going to want to make sure that there's a story in there, that it's really going to help tell your story and integrate, collect all the data, and hold your sellers accountable. Let's keep going. So I think the other aspect of this is, you want to make it easy for your sellers to go generate these and report on them based on the customer inputs and challenges. And so you want to set this aside basically along with all your other content pieces. At the core, if you're developing content and you're expecting your sellers to send it out at different points in the journey, that's exactly what the business cases are as well. And just like you track, are these being opened? Are they collected? You want to be able to get all those same attribution insights as well to understand what's most effective. And then measure and understand, where does it impact? You want to know essentially who's opening it, who's not opening it. If you're trying to speak to the CFO, are they actually looking at it? Did they share it with 5 more people in the buying committee? Did they spend time just on the pricing page, or did they spend time on one of the key aspects that you're trying to call out? That's all going to help your sellers and your managers guide the next conversation. Let's go ahead and keep jumping. Yeah, this is great. So in short, you definitely want to use your value selling to uncover the buyer's priorities and challenges, to quantify things like the cost of doing nothing, to configure the best solution to address their priority challenges, to articulate the investment requirements and what really matters to them, and then to present the relevant success stories. So the last thing you want to do is give them anything that is actually not relevant to them at that time. I'm not going to dive too deep into this, but I do think, for everyone who's on the call today, really take a moment to think about where you are on this value selling journey. Are you operating with spreadsheets? That's definitely, a first step, and it's a first phase, and you want to be doing that if you're not doing anything else. You want to keep in mind that you generally lack version control and security, and you're not able to track usage. You're probably also not able to tie that data back into the CRM and the map so you can use them in other ways, but it's a great first step. Start to think about where you want to be as you evolve your 2024 plans. Do you want to scale it across other sellers? Do you want more interactive tools? And then, again, as you start to phase it up there, you take those value insights where people are engaging and you start to tie them into the sales cycle, how they're impacting deals. And then further on, the world class is really when you get aligned with all your critical business systems and you're using that to advance rep performance, to really coach your reps on what they should be doing next and to drive improvement in your entire sales process. So in short, happy to take questions and have a conversation with Jenny, but, think about where your team sits. Understand that most companies aren't doing it this way yet. And those have a real competitive advantage. And then think about it while you're building your value team. The reality is they're doing great stuff for the deals that they can touch, but this is just something that can't be manual and we can't keep throwing people at right now. So how can technology help you?
Hey, Lindsay, thank you for your presentation and for spending the time with us today. I did have a few questions. So what's the biggest challenge you've seen companies have with adopting value selling across the board, and how can they overcome this?
That's a great one. So I think what happens, and this goes for probably most of the conversations you're going to have today, you can't deploy a tool and just expect a tool to work on its own. You need to get your managers on board. You need to have accountability. You need to be tracking usage and adoption. You also need to remember that sellers generally don't learn how to use something until they're actually in the moment using it. So how can you apply some instructions and make sure that there's enablement behind it? And then I would say the biggest thing is to really come together and start to show results. Once you show it, that customer that I was talking about, they truly have a 5x difference in win rate. And you start to show that to the other reps who aren't using it. And all of a sudden they say, hey, I'd like to boost my quota too. I mean, I'd like to be attaining and be on that list. So I think it really boils down to a tool is just a tool. And it really, people behind it matter as well.
Yeah. One thing you also mentioned just during it was kind of like the challenges of spreadsheets. And maybe that's not always the most reliable form. At Mediafly, is there anything or a tool or a technology that you guys are using that really helps to either simplify that process or create a more secure process?
Yeah, so Mediafly does offer these solutions. So we use our own tools, which is not what I'm here. I mean, my goal is to get as many people out there value selling as there possibly can. And whether you use our technology or you use spreadsheets or you use, there's lots of great tools out there. I think the checklist that we were going through about how to think about it and make sure you're not putting generic numbers out there, that you can really back it up, that they apply to ask yourself, what is the customer thinking about and what do they care about? Because if you go back to them and you say, great, this is going to save you 10%, 40%, and you just throw numbers out there, I think all of us gloss over those numbers that are, and we're guilty, right? They're on our website too. But most definitely at the C level, they gloss over those numbers. You have to make it hyper relevant to them today, or you're going to struggle to get your deal over the line.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. If someone wanted to get in contact with you just to talk about value selling, or if they had questions, what's the best way they can get in contact with you?
Yeah, reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's simply first name, last name. You can find me on there. If you'd like a copy of that maturity model, I'm happy to send that out as well. So we've got some other guides, plenty out there, and appreciate the time today.
Yeah, thank you again, Lindsay. Fantastic presentation. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so a lot of really great information so far today. I do want to give you guys a little reminder that the 11 a.m. blocks have been released. That also has a really great lineup. We have William Tyree, Whitney P. Mitchell, Andre Yee, Jen Igartua, Dan Caffey, Amelia Danzica, and Billy Bateman. And I'm so sorry if I pronounced any of your names wrong. But up next, we will be joined by Brandy Saunders. Brandy is the CMO at Revenue.io and is an award-winning CMO/CRO with a proven track record of building GTM and high-velocity programming for growth-focused startups. I know we're really excited to have Brandy join us today at the RevTech Summit, and she will be discussing maximizing profitability in a multi-channel world, leveraging real-time AI and data. Okay, Brandy, I'm going to add you to the stage. Hey, Brandy.
Hi, everyone. First off, I love the bios give you the worst imposter syndrome known to man. Even if they're accurate, you're like, who is this again? So super excited to be here. Just thrilled to have an opportunity to do the buzzword bingo with everyone, because that title sure was a mouthful. And just talk about, I think, the very real and tactical elements of both do more with less profitability in this sort of layoff palooza market, as well as AI. So very, very excited to kind of kick that off.
I mean, you're not even giving yourself enough credit. I didn't even read the entire bio, so I could probably go on even longer, but I'll keep it short and sweet. I'm going to add your presentation, and then you're good to start whenever you're ready.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right. Well, again, what a pleasure it is to be here. Great to have the opportunity to connect with so many people in the RevTech space. I am Brandy Sanders, CMO at Revenue.io. We'll be talking about maximizing profitability in a multi-channel world, which, again, if you are playing buzzword bingo, I've just violated like 10 tenets for that. So stand by. Don't worry. It gets more real. But I think it's always good to start, with a bit of a story. So if you have ever been in a room in a new role or an existing role with a C-suite leader or your leader, or you are the leader now, and you have had someone say something and they're like, well, I think it should be that way, right? Like you have your Queen of Hearts or your proverbial king, and they are saying, it's my way or the highway, and it should be like this. And they're not looking at the data. You have kind of like that aha moment when you're like, oh no, what have I gotten into? And I think that when we focus on presentations like this, I tend to kind of strip away all of the pomp and circumstance. And as someone who was an individual contributor for many years and worked in both sales and marketing side of the org, so both sides of that blade, I get very passionate about both profitability as a leader, and then obviously the idea of real-time AI and data as a tool for augmentation versus replacement. So we'll jump right into it. I would say for this particular presentation, we're going to talk about 4 basic tenets. We're going to go through efficiency, like understanding structural adaptations, what a team should look like ideally, what's worked in my biased opinion in the past, what we see working in other organizations that are surviving and thriving in a market like this. We're going to talk about leveraging AI for enhanced productivity, not just generative, not just GPTing, a quick email on LinkedIn, like actual productivity. We're also going to talk about real-time data-driven decision-making, not just the buzzword, not just a dashboard that we go into in our BI solution, really understanding how real-time data from both a seller, buyer, and customer perspective is extraordinarily valuable. And lastly, delivering those stellar customer experiences through the amalgamation of everything on here. So we'll jump right into it. And again, team, feel free to clock me, because I am a New Yorker and I'm going to talk at Mach 55. So when we go into efficiency, how easy it is for me as a CMO to talk efficiency. Gosh, I bet. Do more with less. Here's no budget. I cut your team in half. We just had layoffs. Oh, there's 55 new platforms we're investing in. Now go be more efficient. I think that the reality is that when people think of efficiency, they often get bogged down into the tactical. And for sure, there's a value there, but I love to think about it as a part of a greater holistic ecosystem for a working organization that has kind of a healthy quotient for their growth. And when we talk about efficiency in the next slide or two, it's really going to be about structural adaptations, i.e., how do you position and build your teams for optimal performance across different channels. It could be you're managing a team of SDRs, you could be a VP managing sales folks, you could be a CMO managing all of that. We just want to make sure we're talking about consistency, not hooray, one good quarter. We got it out the door and our KPIs were met and then we have no idea how to meet them again, but rather consistency. And a lot of that will come down to operations. So let's get right into it. when we discuss things like efficiency and structure, I think at the very top, and anyone who's ever had to hire, fire, delegate, reallocate, take 55 job JDs and turn it into one because the market is crazy right now. You know the importance of the people that you hire are mission critical. I cannot state this enough. You should be bringing in people that you trust to do a good job when you are out of the room. You should make sure that the people who are in your team are cross-functional players. Now, does that mean wear 55 hats? Sadly, folks, I think that's where we are. If you went through it, you know we're all in it right now. I don't think there's anyone here who just has one hat. And if you do, you need to DM me because I don't know that that exists anymore. But it goes beyond wearing many hats because you can't wear all the hats and do a good job, right? You can't. There's no one person who can run the entire company. That's simply not the reality. And I think anyone who thinks that way is in a dangerous position. So when I think about cross-functional teams, it is hire the people that you know have a thirst for creativity and have a very diverse departmental expertise. So it doesn't just mean, hey, email person just does emails. Like teach them GPT. Make sure they understand pipeline velocity. Why are they creating the content? How is it anchored on an OKR? You need to make sure that you as a leader, whether that's a CMO, a CRO, doesn't really matter what you are. How are you explaining how they play into that bigger picture? And I think innovation is such a buzzword. I probably should have stripped it out of this thing. But when you think about actual innovation, the companies people go to and stay with, the companies who are kind of thriving in a very challenging market like this, that is in a constant state of disruption, whether that's macroeconomic or things like ChatGPT, they are all doing this. It's really about aligning those strategies, hiring that diverse team, and making sure there's like consistency with how you're managing them. And that rolls right down into clear roles and objectives. Again, there is no one person. I do not care how good you are or how long you've been doing what you're doing who can do all of the things excellently. It doesn't exist. And if you're getting that speech, look elsewhere because it's really challenging. And everyone thinks they're a marketer, so this is an easy bet to have. But I think defining precise roles and goals that are aligned with the company's OKRs. If you're sitting in a board meeting and you have a North Star metric, whether that's ARR, churn reduction, doesn't matter. You need to make sure that we're reducing that overlap and that everybody on your team from the top to the bottom, waterfall it down, understands how what they're doing is a domino and that perspective moving upwards. So clear roles and objectives. And when I tell you to document, do I ever mean it? Like document. You need to have swim lanes. You need to make sure that the right hand knows what the left hand is doing and that it doesn't change every quarter. We really need to anchor on that. And lastly, leading with data, not ego, or we've always done it that way. If you did something that worked really great back in 08, so cool. If you did something that worked really great back in 2018 for go-to-market, also very cool. Is that going to work now? No, absolutely it will not. The environment has changed. The structure and the culture of your teams have changed even 6 months ago. If you had something that was, as the former speaker was talking about, working on closing deals, guess what? Now the entire C-suite shows up for a $10,000 ARR deal. So you really have to think like, do you trust the systems that you have, and are you anchored in data? Not gut check, not feel, felt, found, not it's my way or the highway. You need to trust your teams, trust the people that you've hired, and make sure that you are supporting them and resourcing them and not setting them up to fail and then wondering why at the end of the quarter the goals weren't met. It's really, really challenging to get this out of certain types of orgs, but I encourage everyone to always come to the table with data saying, here's what we're doing, here's working, what's not. And we'll kind of get into what that means on the productivity side as it is to your day-to-day. So when we think about leveraging AI for enhanced productivity, everybody and their mother will go GPT, like they will absolutely like Mariah Carey, the GPT. We all think it's like the end all be all. And of course, yes, there are wonderful things in there, but AI is not just that. When we think about automating processes, sentiment analysis, behavioral changes, training, making it better for buyers, customers, sellers, the whole 9 yards, it's much deeper and complex than that. And in this particular market, you really have to think about how can you help your team do more with less and drive profitability. Like it's going to be the end of the day, that's all the C-suite is going to care about is what are the numbers. And so we all have to be mindful of that at the IC level. And when we think about productivity, I think a very good place to start And again, your org might not be, the former speaker also mentioned maturity like aspects here. Not every org is going to be like, hey, raining down from the ceilings. You really have to understand how mature the org is operationally, and is it resourced appropriately? Because you can throw the most beautiful tech stack at something, but if it's not operated and maintained consistently on the back end, data is only as good as it's going in. So trash in, trash out. Don't be surprised when the results aren't there. But starting with conversation intelligence, great place to start. Being able to understand, there's like this little image off to the side there. Don't worry, it's not a pitch slap. It's just me explaining the ecosystem. You need to understand collaboration tools. You cannot have 55,000 windows open. If you are a rep selling, what a miserable experience. If you are a buyer buying and you go through one person to the next and you're on hold, or you're getting an SMS or an email, and the right hand again doesn't know what the left hand's doing, it makes for a really miserable buying experience. And I know you're going to walk out the door and go to a competitor. So it's really about how can you use conversation intelligence, and that's going to be like real-time communications, alerts, nudges, all of that, to fuel data-driven decisions that improve those workflows, whether it's rep responsivity, ramp time, call connect, whatever it is. You need to be thinking about conversation intelligence. It used to be, a nice to have. It is rapidly turning into table stakes and a need to have. Same for AI-driven automation. Like these two things work in tandem with each other. And this goes beyond, I think, routine tasks. So of course, there's tons of solutions out there, different platforms and solutions that do everything from, revenue enablement to operations to marketing automation. But being able to keep a team using it and adopting it is kind of mission critical. And I think that comes down to, if you are using an automation tool, is it actually making you more productive? Or is it just another thing that we're using? And that, again, to the former speaker's point, how are you going to convince, especially as a seller, where's the value in that? Where's that ROI? That's going to be coming out of every C-suite exec's mouth. So AI-driven automation, extremely important, but it also allows you to focus on high-value activities, not just noise. You cannot and will not do more with less with a half-size team or a quarter of a team and a reduced budget and a challenging seller's market if things aren't resourced appropriately. So like understanding how to take the 55,000 things you have to do as a seller or a CX rep or even a leader and say, what are the 5 high value things that I can do right now? That is where AI and conversation intelligence come in. And of course, real-time technology is like the leg on this, right? You have to be able to understand various industries. You have to be able to analyze that data, again, in real time, not just retrospectively in a QBR at the end of the quarter. Too late. They've already left. You need to be thinking proactive, not reactive. And you can drive better immediate decision-making and operational efficiency if you are using platforms that allow you to do that. And again, I saved GPT for the bottom, and Lord help us with Sora. If you studied film, DM me, we can commiserate. But I do think that there are tons of ways to self-create, whether that is Canva, Adobe, GPT, it doesn't matter. There are evolving solutions there, but they certainly, if you've ever gotten a GPT response and you plug something in and then it's giving you something that's absolute trash, it's going to take time for that to be perfect. So you really do have to think, how am I using the tool? It's about augmentation, not replacement. So going into data-driven decisioning. So I feel like if you are thinking about data-driven as a buzzword, this is where you would take your red cup out and slam it, right? This is the big buzzword. For most executives, it's dashboards or reviews or some kind of like Looker BI tool, right? That's how they're thinking. It's like all high level. If you are at a director or manager level, it's more in the trenches. You're in Asana, you're in Trello, you're in Basecamp. You're looking at like the individual contributors. And if you go all the way down to the team level, all the way across multi-channel, whether it's the person running SMS, on the phone as a rep, doesn't matter. They all own data as well. Understanding how to use that data to go from the bottom to the top on those North Star OKRs is really what's going to be critical. And I've said it once, I'll say it again. You're going to need platforms that unify this. You cannot have conversation intelligence over here, generative email over here, follow-up dialer over here, marketing solution over here, this thing over there. It's proliferation of tools. And to the earlier points about CFOs being at the table, they're going to go consolidation, acquisition. It's already in the market. We can see it happening. Do more with less. Do we really need this, or is it a nice to have? And I think data-driven decisioning, actual decisions, have to come from a unified view. which means you've got data coming in from the sales side. You've got things coming in from customers. That could be sentiment. It could be behavioral. It could be literally any different digital touch point in the entire life cycle, all the way through renewal and churn. And like, if you are using a unified view that brings these things together, your business is going to thrive versus struggle with a market like this when you are working 10 times as hard to close something that was super easy to close 8 months ago. And when you think about the data that's going into that, it's not just, engagement or opens or clicks or ads or emails or calls or sentiment. It's bringing it all together and taking that into insightful analytics that you, as a team leader, individual contributor, or an executive, can analyze and understand how to use it to improve the state of the business, not just to look at it at a QBR. It's more than that. It's a mindset, right? You have to be looking backwards and forward at the same time. It's bidirectional. You do not want to be reactive in a market like this. It has to be building for the future. And that's goes back to slide 1 with bringing the right people in, right? You need people who are going to have a insatiable curiosity and a hunger to do this and engage data and analytics versus being afraid of it. And all of that type of analytics helps you to optimize the strategies for what you're doing to improve seller selling, make their life better. It's hard to be a seller. I don't think I've seen such a crazy market since 2008. Like, you really do need people who can get the support that they need, whether that's ramp time, enablement, training, coaching, doesn't matter. And same for customers. Reduce the friction points, constantly be there and have those feedback loops for improvement, whether it's coming from, directly from product, from Pendo, from BI tools. You need to have constant feedback loops, not just on your once a month call, not just in a QBR, not just in the board deck. We need to constantly be engaging at the right time with the right person. And the only way that you can do that is through these different types of platforms that bring in a blend of both revenue intelligence, conversation intelligence, and real-time AI. And it's going to be extremely important over the course, I would say, of the next 36 months for businesses to engage in these solutions proactively so that they can thrive, not just survive. And I think lastly, rounding third here, we do all the work. We acquire, we engage, we educate, we do content, we do videos, we do social, we do white papers, case studies, testimonials, CABs, you name it. We do all this work to capture a very, very, very valuable customer. And sometimes what happens is after all of the heyday has worn off, you have a less than stellar retention. You have a less than stellar experience, both coming through the buying experience as a seller and as a buyer or a prospect. But then on the other side, as a customer, you're like, what happened to all the razzle dazzle that you gave me when I was coming across this line, right? Where did the good times go? I am now in Zendesk ticket number 587, and I'm not getting the responses I need. So in our world as leaders or as managers or directors or even as ICs, we have to think stellar customer and buyer experiences are everyone's job, just like revenue. We no longer get to go hide in the corner and like just do videos or just do this or just do calls or just smile and dial. It's like everyone's job is retention and avoiding churn. Everyone's job is how to extract maximum value from those customers, because in a market like this, much easier to get from than to do net new. And I think everyone knows that. How you do that, depending upon your organizational maturity, huge part of it, in my opinion, is going to be coming from, and not just my opinion, I feel like I should back out to that, Gardner, Forrester, et al. All of them have talked about this. And I'm sure if you're looking at waves recently, conversation AI. Like, we all know that unified experience we talked about earlier, where we're talking about all the different touch points, whether you are a prospect net new visiting, coming in and giving intent signals to a marketer for the site, or touching base with an SDR, all the way through the RFP, and now you are one and you're going through implementation, all the way through, hey, you're here, you've been here 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, you're engaging, here's the real-time updates, through, hey, we're going to renew, or are we going to renew? Conversation AI drives a massive part of this. You have to have a unified experience across all of those channels. It can't just be like the first misfit island of marketing and then the second misfit island of sales that has no idea what's going on with this one. And then CS shows up at the end like, what did sales say? What? I don't know what's happening over there. Like, this has to be unified, and conversation AI and revenue intelligence are a huge part of this, because they apply machine learning and AI coherence across these multiple touch points, and they put it into a way that really makes it easier to digest what is going on, what is the actual real-time state of things, not just, on the phone call or after. It's pre, live, and post call, and really just kind of anchoring on that and being like, how do I know what's going on? And you're going to need that, I think, more than ever. The latter part of this, when we think about conversation AI and AI in general, is like a powerful platform for both, prospects, buyers, customers, sellers, etc., is compliance and privacy. So if anybody has watched the headlines recently, we have had a banner couple of months. We've had, i.e., the cookieless future is here. Good luck, marketing. You're screwed again. You can't send emails to bulk, but you have a 4,500 person newsletter. But if 3 people say it's spam because they're not there anymore, or they don't like that, or they're leaving their job, then all of a sudden your domain is blocked. And then beyond that compliance, beyond that new kind of Google update that's here in April, I believe it is now, you have GDPR. You have HIPAA. If you're working in a very litigated background, or one that is extremely restrictive, like say finance, insurance, medical, etc., how you navigate global compliance, especially with international and even domestic challenges, is mission critical, because one mistake costs your company millions at the end of the day. And no one wants to be the person, the CEO is coming in the room and he's like, Twitter tech bro number 987 is now, paying a $35 million fine because XYZ leak happened, or this person didn't redact PII or something like that for billions of customers. So that conversation AI, those powerful platforms, the idea is that you want to ensure customer data is handled securely. And that is from the beginning to the end, all the way through. And trust, I feel like, should be on every slide as like a giant neon sign. Go back to slide 1. Who you hire, you better trust them. Who you're training to do the outreach, you've got to trust them. Who you're training to retain those people, you've got to trust them. Trust is implicitly the new oil, right? It used to be faux authenticity, and then everyone kind of got wind of that, and they're like, it doesn't really work anymore. But trust is extremely mission critical. Mission critical. And when you build trust and you have a customer, you have to maintain that confidence at every step of the way regarding privacy and data security. And it's a huge point that kind of is the string that binds the entire presentation, because trust is going to be a part of everything that we're doing on each of these, whether it's efficiency, productivity, etc. And then lastly, I will say proactive support. I can't stress this enough, but what used to be, hey, we do a QBR at the end and then we try to figure out who's going to churn. That's not going to work. Not when the CFO is investigating everything every month to determine whether or not you're nice to have or need to have. Or, hey, we're going to do this campaign and I think it's going to work, but I'm not really sure. Or, hey, I'm going to reach out to the 35 contacts that I have on my Smile and Dial list as a rep, and then not know definitely if there's going to be a value there. Like, that proactive support is not just for AI supporting customer experience analytics, but it's making it better for sellers to sell. It's providing contextualization and behavioral and intent and sentiment through personalized communications. And in a world of massive spam and faux authenticity, that trust and that proactivity, meaning I'm not just coming to you 30 days before your renewal, homie. I'm with you from the beginning to the end. And again, I think this is a bit of a unicorn in some organizations, but that proactive approach and the trust really enhances that experience for sellers to sell. It makes it easier for buyers to buy, and then for customers to maintain and want to come back and understand that implicit ROI and value within those orgs. Like, the support needs to be a step ahead, whether it's a marketer responding to inbound, sales responding to a hot lead, or a CS responding to someone who's like, that ticket's been open for 30 days. What's happening? So I think, again, it's just a wide berth of things that came through here. But at the end of the day, when we think about those 4 pillars, when we think about the people that we're working with, when we think about the organizations that we spend 14 to 16 hours a day, depending upon your role, working with, you really have to anchor within that trust, in those real-time elements, and understand that AI has a place, and it is a tool, a very powerful tool, to provide that contextualization and those behavioral changes. And at the end of the day, whether we're a person calling to buy something for a family member, or we're experiencing something as a customer, or we have a customer coming to us, it's going to be more mission critical, I think, than ever, to kind of anchor in those tenets and serve them well every day. Thank you. That is it.
Yeah, I'll just jump in here real quick. You just covered so many like applicable points. It's a little overwhelming.
I know.
Like you touched on like these 4 pillars. Say I'm like behind on a little bit of everything and I'm just not feeling like the trust or something's off. Like where do you start? How do you tackle this? Because it's so much information and it's so quality. Like where would be the best place to really start and dive in?
I think it's tough to say because in a lot of ways it depends on the org. Like at some orgs, it's very easy to have, say, candid conversations with your team. Like if you're managing a team and you're like, we're not like really hitting it, what can we do? If you're leading that team, you could start there. But if you are, say, an executive, a VP of sales, a senior director of RevOps, you have to go above and you have to get that buy-in from the top down. There is no faster kill switch or joy switch in an org than the effect of the top down conversation, right? Because we as marketers can shout from the heavens, like, here's what we're going to do, and we're going to make great stuff happen. And we create killer content and we push it out the door. But unless there's kind of like a culture of support and trust, it will always fail. And I think 9 out of 10 startups do. So look around. I mean, not everything is going to survive. Not all these orgs are going to be here in 36 months. And so I think at a very personal level and a professional level, people have to kind of say, what is the greater pain? Is the greater pain individual performance? Is it that we're not resourced appropriately? Is it that it is a commanding market and product is behind? And like we have to get in front of that. At the end of the day, you can kind of sit down and look at that from a data perspective again and say, if I touch one of these, which one would, if I addressed it immediately, give me a win within the quarter? And 90% of the time, if you can say, give me this and I will give you that. And this is where that data literacy is so very paramount, because you have to be able to tell the story in a model. If you give me $1, I can give you 5. And here's the next 6 months and what I think that trajectory looks like. And I think you just have to be able to prioritize. And again, there's some orgs where you can't, because it's wild and woolly, pew pew. Like every day you wake up and some Twitter tech bro said something and now the whole world's on fire and we're all going to reactively go change quarter to quarter who we are and what we do. But I think that at the end of the day, if you as an individual can control your book of work, do the best that you can with what you have and be able to show measurable impact on the things you can directly control while making the case for, if we did this, you might see that based on that data, it puts you in a much better position for both your personal career and then for the validity of the company.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. And it kind of like makes me think of when you were talking about like a new tech guy comes out with something new and it kind of just
every day.
So this
they love that 2 a.m. They love that Twitter tech bro 2 a.m. post that gets dropped in that Slack. And then all of a sudden we're all like wearing like rainbow hats. You know what I mean? Like it really just depends, like, you know, what the culture of an organization comes from the top down. So if you see that reactivity or that level of volatility, it's somewhat difficult as an IC to control it. But what you can do is say, I will work as hard as I can on what I have with what I am resourced for. I will call out the risks every quarter and say, if you do not do this, you are at risk for that. And you can get that, imagine as a marketer from SEMrush, you could say competitively, like, here's our landscape, here's what we're looking at. X is doing Y, Y is doing A. Here's where we are. We're down here with B. There's lots of different ways to kind of validate those assumptions. And it's certainly not easy. I think if it were, everyone would be just, you know, IPOing left and right. And that's just not the case.
Yeah. Well, and what I was going to say is, like, I feel like AI felt very disruptive. So if you're an org and you're not currently using AI or have an AI strategy, is there like a platform or an area where it's a really good place to kind of like start that analysis or review?
I think that if you are in an org where the executive team is not talking about AI, you should probably activate LinkedIn Premium. And I'm not saying that to be, you know, light or contrite, but I do think that if they haven't had a whoa moment,
Yes,
then they may be more legacy mindset than you realize. And I've seen plenty of startups who were what I would call progressive startups. It's just like, yeah, we're not going to like adopt GPT right now. We're going to do everything manually. And at the end of the day, again, it's augmentation, not replacement, in any way that we can possibly manage that. But if it can make your life easier, if it can make the work that you're doing higher quality and quicker, then there is a case at the individual level, like even something simple like GPT. like just using a GPT. But again, that does kind of roll up to the org, i.e. is legal saying, oh my God, nobody can load, your case studies can't get loaded into GPT to build like a customer marketing GPT or something like that. It's kind of the Wild West. It's a bit of the Wild West, and you'll see orgs swing wildly on a pendulum. And I think honestly, in the next few years, AI will be what www was, right? Like, oh, we're a web company. Are you? Okay, well, everyone's an AI company. I just think the people who have been doing it, working in, revenue intelligence, working in conversational AI, who have kind of this very distinct strategy that existed before everything went totally bananas and everyone, including your grandmother's, using GPT. That there's a leg up there and a runway that is still very, very valuable. And if you get with the right org, or even within your org, make the case for that, I think it could be a bonus to you both personally and professionally.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Brandy. I loved all the themes and really refocusing back on that trust, and especially the unification. I think probably many people feel like they have too many hats currently. And so finding opportunities to really do that, like cross-functional.
It is that Swiss Army mentality will get many a person through the craziness that's happening. So you don't have to be perfect at everything, but even brushing up YouTube, Coursera, edX, you name it, like take 15 minutes and get dangerous. Because I think anywhere you can bring that literacy as a proactive voice of even moderate knowledge is super important, and a bit of a protective, shield for scrutiny against roles and things like that.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Brandy. Really appreciate your time today.
For sure. It was a pleasure being here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Right. All right. So all the presentations will be going live in about 3 minutes. Really make sure to check those out. We've had so many wonderful speakers and sessions today. And another reminder, all of this will be available on demand post-event. Just make sure you're registered. If you're watching from LinkedIn, just go to revtechsummit.com and you can go ahead and register to get access to over 20 sessions that can really help take your teams to the next level. We are on our last session for this live stream, and we will be joined with Mark Mon. He serves as the Chief Analytics Officer and SVP of Customer Success at Domo, with over 8 years of tenure and diverse portfolio of executive leadership. Mark is dynamic, data-driven leader who operates at the highest level of excellence, constantly elevating others around him. Mark is continually pushing Domo to the next level. And prior to joining Domo in 2015, Mark was the VP of Lean Resolution at Garrettson Resolution Group. And we're really excited to have Mark join us today. He's going to be diving into unlocking data-driven growth, and it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. And Mark, if you're ready, I'll go ahead and add you to the stage. Hey, Mark.
Hey, Jenny, how are you?
Good. We're excited to have you join us. Do you have a presentation that I need to add, or?
It says it's processing, so maybe I should just present from my side.
Yeah, you can either share your screen. That's sometimes a little faster. Oh, I see it.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, I'll add that in and go ahead and leave you to it. Thank you, Mark.
Awesome. Thanks, Jenny. I'll pull this over. Sorry, everybody, getting the right screens in front of the right places so that I can be looking at you all. I think we should be in a good spot now. Okay. Well, awesome. Thanks for joining us today. I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about me and how we're unlocking data-driven growth here at the company that I'm with, and hopefully teach you a few things as well throughout. So first, just by way of background, I'm Domo's Chief Analytics Officer and our SVP of Customer Success. I've been at Domo for about 9 years. I've done a little bit of everything. I was interim CMO for a year. So if you're on the marketing side, I feel bad for you, as I did that for a year and said never again. If you're on the sales side of things, awesome. I'll never do that. So, but right now my current role is I oversee all of our post-sales activities at Domo. So that's consulting, CSM, support, all of those kinds of things. I put this QR code. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'd love to stay connected and hear what you're doing within your world and and also share with you what I'm doing in mine. So today, wanted to talk about data-driven growth. Working at Domo is an analytics organization, and so my background is all in operations and analytics, and so I thought it would be helpful today to talk a little bit about how we've unlocked data-driven growth here at Domo, and also how you might be able to do the same within your organization. So we're going to do this by talking about 3 keys. The first key is data-driven decisions. Next key is automation and efficiency. And the last one that we're going to hit is predictive analytics and forecasting. So let's jump into it. Data-driven decisions. In my experience, data-driven decisions really come from 2 places. The first is data-driven culture. And the second one is effective org structures. And we'll talk a little bit about that. I have to tell you that these visualizations are apparently a younger, more attractive version of me. My team loves to use AI art generation to build my slides. And so I gave them free reign on this deck, and they've apparently created me in different formats throughout the slides. So you can hopefully get a little bit of chuckles as we're going through this. So yeah, let's dive into to this. All right, I've lost my cursor from an advancement perspective. Okay, I'm back here. Excellent. Okay, so for data-driven culture, in my experience, this is probably the biggest thing that you can do within your organization, is to create a data-driven culture. And how do you do that? Well, I think it's there's a number of different ways, and we'll talk through some of those ways. But really, it's starting with setting that expectation at an organization-wide level, that we are going to drive our organization through data, that we are going to have a culture that focuses on data and that understands the value of data and is going to leverage that data in order to be able to make the right decisions within the organization. Now, you can't always have all the data that you need to make those decisions, but you definitely can have a lot of that data. And in my experience, the more data that you have, the better the decisions you can make, and the better the decisions, the more success you're going to have within your organization. But first, I thought I would talk a little bit about the why. Why does this matter? Why are data-driven decisions important? And McKinsey did a study not that long ago where they asked organizations what was driving success within some of their digital transformation efforts. And I would put analytics and data-driven culture as a part of kind of digital transformation efforts. And so they found that anywhere up to 2.5%, you are likely to have up to 2.5% more success if you were to implement these kinds of solutions. Things like having digital tools, making those tools self-service, putting KPIs out there or targets out there for your organization. And so that's really where this matters, is like if you're driving within your organization this kind of data-driven culture and you're providing data to your organization, they're definitely going to be able to have more success. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about some examples. So again, I shared Domo as a data visualization and a data management platform. And we found at Domo that it's not just about having your data, it's about also making that data accessible, and as reasonable and reliably as possible. And when we do that, we found that employees really take action based on that data. So, at Domo, we have over 1,000 employees that are logging into our instance of Domo every day. And we have massive amounts of data. I wrote down some notes here. We have over 8,200 dashboards with over 120,000 different cards. Now, we call cards, those are like charts, right? So we have over 120,000 different charts within our system. So just massive amounts of data that's been created, brought into the system, and that people are leveraging to make decisions every day. Now, you can imagine with over 120,000 different charts, it can be quite difficult to manage that and to find what you're looking for. And honestly, I found that was true. Oops, it looks like the video won't play. I found that to be true with us as well. And so I asked my team, can we build an easy way to navigate all of these different metrics and the most critical metrics. And so what we did is we set up a CAO page, right, a Chief Analytics Officer navigation page, where I can go in and at any given time, click into any of the departments within the organization and drill down. And each of these pages actually have a red, yellow, green type of approach to them. So a very simple chart that shows me red, yellow, green. And then I can click down into that specific chart type and see, into that red, yellow, green indicator, and then see a whole page or dashboard of different charts that will give me the reason why that area in the business might be red, yellow, or green. Again, it's an easy way for me if I'm sitting in the executive meetings that we have every week. It's easy to ask. I always say it's easy to ask a question and much harder to answer it. So I'll get all sorts of questions. I'm able to quickly navigate to, is this question a question that's tied to our competitors? Is it tied to, maybe our free offering? Maybe it's a finance question. Can navigate down and see quickly where we're looking from a red, yellow, green perspective, and then be able to dive into the reasons why that might be the case. Get past that one. The second area here that I wanted to talk about is effective org structures. And I found in my career that the way that you structure an organization is absolutely critical. It's almost as critical as actually having the data and making that data accessible. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about a couple of ways that we've structured our teams here and that our customers are structuring their teams as well, specifically their analytics teams or their data management teams. So a couple of different ways that I've seen. Really, there are three ways, but the two ways that I would recommend is either a centralized model or a hub and spoke model. So at Domo, we're employing both of these models. The centralized model we're employing for my internal analytics team. So I've got a team of analysts, data scientists, app developers, and they're in this centralized team. But we also use this hub and spoke model as well. And we do that really for additional capacity when we don't have capacity within our centralized team. And so really you can use either of these organizational structures within your company. You might be new and you haven't set up an analytics team or a data management practice. And so I would suggest that you consider which of these two structures might be the best for your organization based on what you're trying to accomplish. Let me go through a few advantages and to each of these models, benefits to each of these models that might be helpful in making helping you to make this decision. So the first is a centralized structure. So what I found is in having a centralized structure, you reduce friction between departments. There's not this kind of infighting. You're all a part of one team, so it allows you to have some neutrality there. The other thing is, if I am reporting to the CMO, it's likely that I'm going to help the CMO look good. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're trying to get to the truth, arguably what matters more than making the CMO look good is getting to the right answer. And so, in the centralized structure, you have a neutral party that's not tied to the CMO, is not tied to the CRO, but instead is able to sit neutrally in the organization and be able to provide insight without worrying about keeping their job or keeping their boss happy, for example. The other thing I would say is that this allows us to create a cohesive data structure, meaning we can strategize and set and create a plan on where we want to get to from a data perspective and what our key initiatives are for the year, and then build a data strategy that supports that. The last one, obviously, is, in my experience, this kind of structure provides improved collaboration and coordination as well. Now, like I said, not the only way to do it. The other way that you can do it is have a distributed structure or kind of a hub and spoke structure. And there are some benefits to this as well. I found that if you have people actually embedded within the organizations and you're this kind of decentralized structure, meaning your analysts or your data scientists actually are reporting into each of the departments, they're able to move at speed. Sometimes organizations won't have the patience to say, hey, I'm going to make this request and wait for this other department to provide me with this information. And so that's one thing. The other one I've seen is this department alignment, which is, if you're sitting in meetings with a marketing team, you're able to understand where they're trying to get to you're getting a lot of context within that organization and those meetings. I've put a footnote here on this slide that you can get away with a centralized model if you have your folks sitting in on key meetings within that department. So it's just something to consider. So here, kind of talked about those three models. I would recommend a centralized or a hub and spoke model, and probably not a decentralized model in my experience. But you can see here on this matrix, if you're looking for something that maybe might be more enterprise-wide, you might want to go more to a centralized model. If you're looking for flexibility and speed, you might want to look more to a hub and spoke model for your analytics efforts. All right, second key. I'm gonna flip to my notes here so I don't get anything too far off of what I wanted to say here. Wanted to talk a little bit about automation and efficiency. I mean, all of us in our organizations, we're always trying to do more with less. And I think the way that we do that is through obviously driving efficiency, but also automating things within the organization. So want to talk a little bit about that. The two keys, I think, here to automation and efficiency. The first one is thinking at scale, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And the other one is data process and adaptability. So as far as thinking at scale, I found if you start with the end in mind, you often create a situation where not only are you going to get great results today, but you're also going to set yourself up for great results in the future. And so if you can think a little bit ahead as you're building out your projects, as you're starting your journey in, maybe a particular analytics solution or wherever you might be in your journey, if you could think, 12, 18, 24 months ahead, that oftentimes will help you not only to get the immediate need met, but also to take that immediate need and to be able to apply that in a way where you're not wasting time in the future by having to reset and redo. And then the second one is process and adaptability, which we'll talk about as well. So let's dive in. So thinking at scale, I'm sure we've all seen this or heard this. If you haven't, then you must be quite young in your career. But there's really kind of three main pieces, the three main levers, I guess I would say, that you could pull in order to drive success within an organization. The first is your people, next is your process, and the last is your product. People, process, systems, people, process, product. You probably heard this within your organizations as well. So really, I go back here real quick. Really, I think what you want to do here is just think about these different levers and which ones you should pull at what times. So for example, you might be able to solve a problem through people by hiring or by training, but hiring is expensive. So, is there something that you can do with your existing people to drive process that would allow you to maybe not hire as many people? Same thing with a system. If you've got a really intuitive system, then that intuitive system is going to allow you to not have as much work to be done by individuals, and it is ultimately going to allow you to get to the same result without having a heavier expense. I think the same applies for processes. Sometimes all you need is to set a process that's efficient, and by setting that process that's efficient, your people will follow that and will be able to run at scale. All right, on data process and adaptability, I wanted to share a little example that we've been experiencing here at Domo. So we are in the process of changing our pricing model, and this is a massive undertaking. If you can imagine changing how you price your product and going from, say, a seat-based pricing to a consumption-based pricing, massive amount of effort, a lot of people across the organization are involved. And as we've gone through this process of changing our pricing model, we've spent a lot of time focusing on what is the right way to do this and how can we move as quickly as possible. So it's crazy to think, but we've got over 10 people that are actively involved in these pricing models changes every day. And not only do we have a lot of people, but we also have a ton of measurements that we're measuring ourselves against. As often as we can, we're looking at these measurements and making sure that we're making progress against those. And I think really, as you go into this, just shows when you go into a project like this, thinking about the end result, where you want to get to, how you need to staff for that. And again, to the people, process, systems, you have the ability to drive and pull those levers and drive success in many different ways. All right. Key 3, I wanted to talk a little bit about predictive analytics and forecasting. I mean, predictive is everywhere in every conversation. I mean, it's been talked about here at RevTech today, and really it is undoubtedly the future. AI and predictive analytics, large language models, that kind of thing. And so I thought I would take a few minutes just to talk about some things that we're doing at Domo to take advantage of predictive analytics and how we're forecasting and looking into the future, hopefully with the end result of it being helpful for you all as well. So from a predictive analytics and forecasting perspective, it's pretty basic, but this is me looking into a crystal ball. That's creepy, but whatever. So wanted to talk a little bit about data in, data out. And we've heard this before. Again, if you've been in your career for a period of time, quality data in, if you put quality data into things, you'll get quality data out. And so you've got to focus a little bit on the cleanup and the data processing side of things in order to be able to get to a place where the value is truly there and that you can rely on that data. Nothing super crazy here, just that you want to focus on this and make sure that your data that you're putting into your system has been cleansed and that you're making the right decisions using that data. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how we're doing this, specifically how we're building custom apps to help ensure that we have great data. So one of the things that we have to do every week in sales and in our customer success organization is to forecast where we think we're going to land for our organization for the year, for the quarter, for the month, so that we can stay in front of that and provide our leadership team with insight as to where we're at, where we're going, and also ensure that we're providing great results to our shareholders as Domo is a publicly traded company. So we forecast every week. Our CSMs, our AEs, they're forecasting every week. And we built a custom solution, a forecasting app within Domo where we capture this. And this is really focused on that quality data in perspective. We've tried to make a very intuitive and simple to use solution where individual contributors can come in and forecast each of their opportunities that they have in the pipeline. Might be an opportunity that sales is working on. Maybe it's an upsell that CSMs and AEs are co-working on, or it might just be a renewal that the CSM is focused on. So every week they're able to come in here, make individual adjustments to their forecast for specific accounts, and then they're able to make an overall adjustment. And what we found in implementing the simple solution is the quality of data that we get from our CSMs and our AEs is much greater, and therefore we're able to much more effectively forecast and predict where we will end at the end of the quarter or the end of the year. So again, just a simple solution, implement a tool that will allow you to get quality data into your system. And then from that, what's awesome is we're able to take all of that data and we're actually able to build predictive models that are frankly better than the individuals at forecasting where we're going to land for the end of the quarter. So we've been able to build these predictive models on this data, and we're hearing both from our individual sales reps and CSMs where they think they're going to land, but then we're also able to make adjustments on their forecasts and their calls based on creating predictive models that then tell us where we think that they'll land. It's pretty cool. We've trained these models over a couple of years of time, and they're incredibly accurate. Within 5% at the very beginning of the quarter, we know within 5% plus or minus where we're going to land from a retention perspective and from a sales perspective. So pretty cool stuff. All right. Also wanted to talk a little bit about AI and ML and what we're doing here. I know we hear a lot about AI, and I'm sure we're all using it a little bit. Maybe you're using it for pictures of redheads in your presentation. I don't know. But one of the ways that we're using AI here at Domo is to synthesize large amounts of information. Specifically, we have a call recording program called Gong. You might have, a number of different kinds of ways that you record your calls. But we have this program called Gong, where we record all of our calls, and Gong gives us some high level insights as to those calls, when pricing comes up in conversations, that kind of thing. But it doesn't really provide us with a summary of all the calls. And so when I stepped into this role running CS, I wanted to get involved with as many customers as possible, hear as many calls as possible, but it just frankly became impossible to do, and to do at scale. And so what I asked my team to do is, could they use some kind of large language model to be able to provide me with a summary of that call and what happened in that call? And so they leveraged, first a Chat GPT solution. Now they've used other models within Domo, and they're able to provide me with a summary where, without going and listening to a full call recording, I can get a high level idea of what that call has looked like. So if I'm going out to visit a customer, I can just quickly pull up the summaries from the last calls and get insights around that. What's been cool is the team saw this, and my team said, hey, I think we can do this in other areas. And so our support team has created a model that allows them to automatically score the interactions that support people are having with our customers. There's a checklist of items that in each support call, the support employee should be going through. And some of them are basic, others are a little bit more complex. But using AI, we've been able to not require managers to go in, listen to that call, and ensure the checklist was accomplished. But we're actually able just to, through piping through AI, we're able to see and automatically indicate on that checklist what was done and what was not done. So what that's allowed us to do is to go from a single kind of spot check mentality to every single call checklist is applied, and we're able to see how we're doing against that checklist. So again, just one way that we're doing that here at Domo. So how do we unlock growth? My team said that we need to figure out how to make more gingers. I told them this is going to be tough. It's a recessive gene. I have 3 kids. None of them have the curse of red hair. So I don't think that's our answer. But I think our answer is in these 3 keys that we talked about. So first, figuring out how to drive data-driven decisions, figuring out how to get your folks focused on a culture that is data-driven, setting up your organization in a way that you can make data-driven decisions, and you've got the right analytics folks that are doing everything that they need. Second key, automation and efficiency. Anything that we can do faster saves us $1, and anytime we can save $1, that's $1 that we can reinvest back into the business or pass on to our shareholders. And last but not least, I'll get it out. We leverage predictive analytics and forecasting. So hopefully this has been helpful for you today. I'm so excited that we got a chance to talk. Again, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Look me up, Mark Mon. Happy to connect and share any insights that I've got from my time in doing this, and would love to hear anything that you all have found in your time in doing this as well.
Thank you, Mark, for taking the time to join us today. I mean, my personal favorite was all the AI versions of you, so your team did good. But I also think you just nicely rounded out the event and kind of reiterated the things that are on the top of everyone's mind. And I think ultimately, if people if you haven't already started thinking about how to integrate AI to increase productivity and efficiency, and if you're not cleaning up your data, you should really start considering doing those things.
For sure. And like I said, I would love to talk because I think it's so fresh and so new that every time I have a conversation with somebody about AI, I'm finding that there's something new that I'm learning, some trick that somebody might be using or some lesson learned. And I think if we're sharing those lessons learned, we'll be in a better spot altogether.
Yeah, and you can make awesome images.
That's true. Yeah. Well, we're gonna have to make redheads via AI since we're all going away. So.
Well, thank you again, Mark. I hope you have a good rest of your day.
You too. Thanks, Jenny.
All right, so we just finished up our live session. Reminder again, if you're watching this and joining us on LinkedIn, register at revtechsummit.com. It's definitely worth the time. We have 22 presentations, 30 speakers, 30 different companies. They really put a lot of time into creating these sessions to give our audience actionable insights that you can take and implement into your current programs. A few other notes, if you aren't following us on LinkedIn, make sure to do so. It's really the best place to stay up to date on our upcoming events. This year, we still have 3 more events to come, focusing on demand gen, and then we'll do an AI revenue summit in the summer. So to stay up to date on when those will be coming out, just follow us on LinkedIn. We will also be uploading all the presentations to our podcast for your streaming, and we'll be announcing when those are available on our LinkedIn. Also want to congratulate all the nominees. We had over 60 nominees who are truly leaders in their fields. Make sure to give them a follow. It's definitely worth your time as they're thought leaders in this B2B space and always have great insights and advice. We also broke a record, this event getting over 3,500 votes. And our winners were crowdsourced. And so really the people who helped make this event possible selected those winners. And we want to congratulate them as well. And then thank you to everyone who joined us today. This was a record-breaking number of live attendees that we've had at a virtual event. And we really want to make sure that you can continue to enjoy future events. So give us a follow on LinkedIn and make sure you're registered at revtechsummit.com to get the most out of this event. Thank you.